You're listening to a Whales Are Whales production.
You're also listening to Whales.
Visit whalesorewhales.com for more projects and shows like this one.
Greetings.
Hello! Welcome to Hearthaholics, a Hearthstone strategy podcast about sitting back, chatting with friends, and figuring out how to be more awesome at this game. This is episode 18. I'm your host, Bryan, and joining me today, everyone is back. So, Billy, you have returned. Hello, Billy. How are you doing?
I have in fact returned. And I
where
am
have you
doing
been?
very well.
What dark secrets have you been up to these last 2 weeks?
EU ladder, I guess?
That's a pretty good answer. If anything's a dark secret, that is EU ladder. Also joining us, as always, is Andres. Hello, Andres.
Hey, Bryan. I just want to say I'm very glad Billy's back.
Me too.
He's not lost in the barrens of Australia.
Well, the difficulty last time is we were like agreeing on every card. We kind of need someone here to shake things up a little bit.
Yeah.
From across the world
in
to
the
tell
middle,
us
just
why.
be like, no, you're all wrong. This card's awesome. That will happen 80% of the cards we talk about today.
I'm going to keep track of how many cards we agree on. And if it was more than 5, I'm going to be amazed. So I'm going to give us a little mark for every. So we're going to take bets here.
All right,
So we have
over-under.
35 cards to go over. I want everyone to guess a number of how many we're just going to completely agree on, and whoever's closest wins. And no changing your opinion to make your bet better.
3.
3 is Billy. Andres, what about you?
How many cards is it? 30? 30?
35.
Actually, I'm going to say 10.
Ooh, 10.
Wow.
I'm going to go in between you guys, and I'm going to say 6. And so, Andres, you had the benefit that if we go anywhere above 10, you're going to win. So, all right. Well, we'll see what happens here.
If we start disagreeing too much, I'm just going to start agreeing towards the end with whatever you guys say.
And yeah, we actually
No,
have...
Spiders is good. Oh, yeah.
You
absolutely.
can't-
Oh, no, I said we weren't going to talk about ball spiders. Gosh, darn it, Andres.
Just kidding.
You're already
Just
breaking the
just
rules.
kidding.
But yeah, since we actually do have so many cards to go over, we're just going to jump straight into that. Because man, 35 is a lot of cards. If we end up having time for some reason after that, we can chat about what we've been up to this week. But let's just start off into the
Oh, wow.
grand tournament
Right
cards
into
that have been announced.
business. We're not kidding around this time.
Not at all. Billy's back, so we need to stay on our toes. And speaking of Billy, why don't you run us through these 35 cards we have to go through?
All right, it should only take a minute, right? I mean, there's only 30. There's only 30. I mean,
Yeah, no time at all. We're going to agree on every card, so,
all right. So we're going to go through neutrals first, and then we'll go into class cards. And I think we're doing by rarity. Not quite by rarity, but we're doing legends last.
Legends last. Yep.
So first off, we have a 3-cost minion. His name is Argent Horse Rider. He's kind of a little brother to Argent Commander. He's a 3-cost minion, 2 attack, 1 health, with Divine Shield and Charge.
And he is common rarity. Is it? I don't know if you mentioned that, but yeah.
Yes, common rarity.
So
Well,
he's a
yes,
Murloc with Divine Shield is basically what we're looking at here.
Yeah, which I say is worth it. If you look at like Bluegill Warrior, right? Would you pay an extra mana without having to use another card to give him Divine Shield?
I wouldn't be playing Bluegill Warrior.
Well, yeah, probably not.
So I guess my big question about this card when I saw it is, is this an aggro paladin thing, do you think?
No, I think they run Wolf Rider anyway, because the damage is going to go to face, right?
That's a good point. You don't really need the Divine Shield on that. So I guess I'm a little confused where this fits in. I don't know if you're going to be wanting to run this in a control paladin when you're playing stuff like Muster for Battles. So I land confused on this card.
In all
Not
honesty,
quite
I
positive
think
where to
this
go.
could fit in an aggressive paladin. It's like a mini Argent Commander, right? And I think it could be run over Wolf Rider just because you want the instant damage with that deck, and then you're buffing your minions. And the Wolf Rider usually dies after the first turn that you play it. This might stick, on the other hand. And you lose 1 damage, but if it sticks for a turn, then you're doing 1 more damage than the Wolf Rider. And it's easier to buff. So it seems like an aggressive card for sure. The charge is just naturally an aggressive mechanic.
I think you could see it in some type of tempo rogue deck, maybe. Because tempo rogue used to be a super popular deck back in the day, and I think this would fit perfectly in it in the same way that Argent Commander fit perfectly in it, except you would use it obviously earlier.
True.
So maybe you could see it
with
like
an
that.
oil,
But
it would be kind of good. I guess you would have to wait turn 7, or you could do it with a prep, but it would be better than like the 2/1 pirate. I guess you're paying.
I was
mana,
thinking
though.
less combo-y and more, take control of the board type thing. But
Right.
next up we have Armored Warhorse. It's a rare minion with it costs 4 and it's 5 attack and 3 health, and it reads Battlecry. Reveal a minion in the deck, in each player's deck. Sorry, if yours costs more, gain charge. So
By the way, I just want to point out, Andres, we already agreed on a card, so this is voting what ill for us, Billy. We need to
was
start
that
getting.
really agreeing though? The previous card.
What
I
did
don't
we
think that-
disagree on?
Well, oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
see?
guess we all just saw it in different. We didn't really disagree on
Right.
the card, but we just
We
saw
didn't,
it
like,
in different.
none of us said like this is bad, so we
We
weren't
definitely agree it's
argumentative.
an
So that's what I'm
aggressive
going to
card,
go
and
on.
it can be a tempo card because of the Divine Shield. It's,
So now I want to
sticky.
disagree on this card. I think Armored Warhorse is bad because the decks you want to run it in are going to be aggressive, and the aggressive decks are going to have low-cost minions, so it's anti-synergistic to itself. So
Yes,
I don't see it as good.
I completely agree with that. I thought I was going to have to try and argue that with somebody on this show when I first
We
saw
might
this card.
still. Andres has not weighed in on the Armored Warhorse.
What do you think of Armored Warhorse,
okay,
Andres?
we're gonna have to disagree on this one.
This is more like
okay,
it.
okay. Here's the thing about Armor Warhorse. It's dependent on an effect that is dependent on randomness, right? Like
Sure.
Joust or whatever they want to call it. Is innately just you don't know if you're gonna get it or not. And you're right. Usually in an aggressive deck, you're gonna be running low cost minions. But here's the thing: this guy has Leroy stats with the old Leroy cost, right?
When I saw this, I was like, "Oh, it's Leroy." Oh wait, sometimes it's not Leroy.
Yeah, it has 1 less attack, but it costs 4, and a 5 attack minion with charge that costs 4 can combo with a lot of deadly things.
True.
So maybe in a combo deck where you're running,
Like oil or something that only runs fairly, not a ton of low drops or something like that.
the only thing that makes me doubt about this guy is that the RNG factor can screw you over in the end.
Yeah,
and if you're
you don't
trying
want
to
that as a
do-
win condition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like it. Like the idea behind this card is that it would be a win condition for certain decks, but you don't want your win condition to be random. It's the same reason no one runs Ragnaros anymore, because it's too random dependent.
Also, if you're doing maybe like an aggressive beast druid, I could imagine something like that, where we're running a lot of mid-range minions that cost
But again,
maybe
it
4,
runs
5,
into
6.
the same. It runs into the same problem of being in a low curve aggressive deck, so it's not going to be able to win the joust.
Well,
Yeah.
in a deck like that, it wouldn't have a low curve, right? Like your lowest minion might be 4, maybe 3 if you're running like shades or maybe stuff like that. But with Innervade and with Wall Growth, you can skip the, kind of like those first 2 turns, especially with that
I see what you're saying.
That new dude that gives you the temporary Wall Growth that we might talk about him later.
Yeah, I think that you make a good point with that.
So I would
still
see it more in a
kind
deck
of
like that, but yeah, I would never see it in a deck like Face Hunter or Aggro
We're gonna
Paladin.
label this card as a disagreed.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree on that one.
Yeah, all right,
I don't know if we'll see it in
But I think
competitive
Andres
play,
makes strong points.
but
I just
I
don't
think
we
it
have the
has
same
its
opinion
uses.
yet. Yeah.
By the way, from here on out, I'm just gonna. I want to explain the joust mechanic, and that way we can just label
joust.
cards as joust. From here on out, when we say joust, that effect means reveal a minion in each player's deck, and if yours costs more, you win the joust. And so from here on out, if I say joust, that's what that means.
A few notes about that: you reveal it, but you don't draw it or do anything to the card. I believe
It just gets shuffled back, yeah.
It is also a randomly revealed card, so it's not necessarily going to be the next card you draw or anything, and it's also only minions, correct? It is not spells?
Yeah, only minions.
Okay. Cool. So those are just a few things that people might want cleared up about Joust, like me, before I knew all that stuff. So, all right. So we got what? Mukla's Champion next?
Yeah, Mukla's Champion is a 5 cost. It's a common card, and I'd like to point out that it is a gorilla riding a hippo, which is the
it already
greatest
wins
thing.
flavor-wise.
Yes, it's the greatest thing in this entire
And he's
set.
using a bamboo shoot that has his pole arm.
Right.
That was pretty cool.
He looks very flavorful. Anyhow, It's a 5-cost common minion. It is a beast. And it has 4/3 for stats, and it reads Inspire, give your other minions +1/+1.
I think this reminds me of something like Raid Leader or something that is kind of cool for Arena or something like that, but it's like way too slow and conditional for any actual constructed decks and relies too much on board presence. So I'm not like the 4/3 stats for 5, I think kind of kill it for me, but I like it.
If
I like it in
anything
theory.
makes this card good, I'm not saying it's going to be good, but if anything makes this card good, it will be the fact that it's a beast.
Yeah,
to that
that's true.
beast druid.
Another neutral beast.
Also, this can come from Web Spinner.
That's true.
I was about
That's true.
to say that this might buff Web Spinner a little bit, but aside from that,
I also
kinda
want to point
agree
out
with
that
Bryan.
the last card we talked about, the charge, the card that sometimes has charge, is also a beast, so that can also come from Web Spinner.
that can also be very good from a Web Spinner specifically. But I
Yeah,
think I agree
I
with
think it's
Bryan.
just
This card
clunky.
is just a little bit too. It's just too slow. Unless there's a way. Unless they release a card that makes your hero power cost less, so maybe a
They've
card that when
released
it comes
that.
into play, it automatically triggers your hero power or something like that.
Right.
I don't think that cards like this are gonna see much play.
I think this is one of the cards that with how the game currently stands, what we know, it's not very good, but if somehow hero powers become dramatically different with all the changes to it, then we could see it getting played.
Like I feel
But,
like
from our current
to
information,
be able to
it's-
get away with some of these cards that have Inspire, you almost have like you almost need like the Inspire Mech Warper, right? A card that's gonna allow you to squeeze in more resources into one
I guess
turn.
that's made into the lake. I just don't know if it'll be played that much.
Yeah, it's just so expensive. I guess she's
Right.
hard to remove though, so she will easily last a turn.
Yeah. But yeah, to me, it's just like, love the flavor, love the idea, but I think the cost to the stats are just like really unfavorable for it.
Yeah. It's definitely a tempo loss.
So next up, we have Crowd Favorite, which is a epic minion. He's a 4-cost 4/4, and he reads whenever you play a card with Battlecry, although that should read minion because only minions can have Battlecry. Whenever you play a card with Battlecry, gain +1/+1.
This is terrible. This is a bad card, right? This is like a bad questing adventurer. I guess it comes out with okay stats for the cost, but it's so slow.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
It's just not really a card, which is I don't know. Yeah, you're right. It's just too slow. There's also not very many 5-cost Battlecry things.
Yep.
That you
I mean,
wanna
I'm a
play on
fan of
5.
every Blood Elf they're going to put in the game, but this guy, I don't know. He seems like really full of himself, but actually not actually doing anything useful.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the
I mean,
point of
he
the
is the
card.
crowd favorite.
Yeah.
Right. Next,
I-
Andres, do you agree with that?
I was gonna say I like this card.
Dang it! I had us down for an agreement.
Okay,
Hey,
so
you can't
I
count my
also
opinion.
like the card existing, but I don't think it's like a
good.
good.
This card reminds me of like Magic cards that like white decks, the white weenie decks that just played value cards with solid stats that you could buff, and they would buff each other when you played other cards. So it's very synergistic, right? If you could get a couple of other guys, like for example, even with like a Shatter Sun Cleric, this guy could be very deadly.
Nah, man, it's not gonna work. I'm
So you think
sorry,
maybe like kind of an
even
aggro paladin
underneath-
where you're just playing a ton of cheap battle cries like Abuse with Sergeant and that sort of stuff and just
Yeah,
building
there's
up
so
like
many,
crazy.
There's so many battle cries in the game that making this guy grow in a constructed deck wouldn't be hard. He could
No,
get off
I think
hand
it would
pretty easily
be.
too.
Disagreed, Stamp.
The battle cry that like gives him divine shield and all that. Yeah, I get where you're going. I disagree with you, but I get where you're going.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah. I want to see that
For
deck
me,
try.
from my personal stamp, I put the maybe stamp on it, but probably not.
Seems like with
is
card
right
like
underneath
this,
it.
you're gonna be able to make a deck that just makes it's all about buffing your minions, all about growing.
No,
them
yeah,
stats.
we understand that, but like I just don't see it working.
Yeah.
Anywho, next up we have kind of a controversial card. People don't like this card. It is his name or her name. Is that a her? It's
I
totally
think it's a her. It
Okay,
might be
so-
a blood elf, so it's hard to tell.
Yeah, I know, right? Grand Crusader, who's also an epic minion, is a 6-cost 5/5, and it reads Battle Cry. Synergizes with the previous card. Battle Cry, add a random paladin card to your hand.
Okay.
And it's a neutral minion.
So this card's pretty cool if other 6-drops didn't exist.
Right.
But other
However-
6-drops exist.
However, we do need to take into account that granted, right now, the 6-drop slot is very competitive. But the next season, or once this expansion is out, the meta could be shaped in a way that a 6-drop slot isn't so competitive, because now maybe you can get away with running more than just one, or maybe even more than just two.
That's true. As the meta slows down, it's kind of like, well, do I need a Sylvanas, a Thaurissan, and like a Cairn, or could I cut Cairn for Grand Crusader? And I would say, nah, probably keep Cairn. But
no, I don't think so. Cairn has
so?
four attack isn't good enough anymore for a late game card.
That's true, but you get the one attack, but with Cairn, you get your guaranteed spell is another 4/5 without having to pay anything for it, as opposed to another Paladin card, which is probably not going to be as good as a 4/5. So I don't know.
Okay.
It's like, it's hard for me, and you have to pay a mana cost for that. So like, it's too weak for the
I
cost.
don't see it ever being run in Constructed, because it's not a consistent card, and Constructed players want consistency.
It's the kind of card that I could see if you were playing Limited, or if this was the type of thing where they were retiring old cards to bring new cards in, I could see it getting played. But because of how Constructed works, this is rough. For Arena, we go back to, sure, like, this is cool.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I don't see it as being running Constructed either. It's inconsistent.
Oh,
and
wow,
honestly,
we got an agreed stamp.
And honestly, the Paladin cards are not like something to be like super impressed about. Like, what do you want to get?
I mean,
Maybe
you
like
got
a
one
True
drop
Silver
stuff.
would be nice to get. Maybe a Consecrate might be nice to get. In
Tyrion,
certain
the
situations,
dream.
lay on hands.
Tyrion.
In certain
You know, I'm
situations,
changing my
Tyrion.
vote.
But
Tyrion on this.
the chance of getting the right card is so low. And then you also have a chance at getting one of the stupid Paladin secrets.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, so next card we have here has my favorite word in the entire game in the name of it, which is Gadget Stand, for obvious reasons. The previous Gadget Stand in the game was one of my favorite cards ever. We have Gadget Stand Jouster, who's a common minion. He's a 1-cost 1/2. Oh, what a bad card.
No.
And it has the effect Battle Cry, Joust. Battle Cry, Joust, gain +1/+1. So, if you win the Joust, you play a Zombie Chow without a downside. If you lose the Joust, you have a 1/2.
I love it.
I don't like this card.
I feel like you're just too likely to lose that value against another control deck that's playing Zombie Chow.
Right.
Because, like, if you open with this and fail, because you're both playing control, so it's like 50-50 if you win, and they play Zombie Chow, they're, like, just ahead.
Okay, so let me present to you an idea.
Okay.
What if Zombie Chow and cards like Zombie Chow are no longer good cards? Because the only reason that
they combat aggro?
Yeah, the only reason we currently run them, and keep in mind that players are currently cutting them, even with the amount of aggro that's on ladder.
Mm-hmm.
If the
there's such
meta
bad
is
top decks.
slower, if the meta is a slower game, there will be no reason for these minions. So, I think this card would be better than Zombie Chow if the meta was like that.
And that's why do you think it would be better than Zombie Chow even in that case? Because you
As
could play
a
it later?
one of. Because you're not running two of these, because then you draw bad.
Right. Oh, yeah. Dude, what if you played a Gadgetzan Jouster and then for Joust you got your other Gadgetzan Jouster?
Right.
That would be sad.
True,
But yeah, I see what you're saying.
That being said, I don't think this is better than Zombie Chow. I was just presenting a hypothetical.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm with
the
you
meta
there.
is always going to move, right? Like, it might slow down, but if it does slow down, then you're right, people are going to start cutting things like this. And as the moment people start cutting things like this, then aggro decks are going to creep back in, and then the cycle will move on.
That said, this card is smart in that, yet again, they're creating a powerful 1-drop that can't be played in aggro. And I think that's really good design on their part.
Yeah,
like Zombie
you're right
Chow,
about that. This is an anti-aggro card for sure.
This card is so like Trump was a player who tried Zombie Chow in Zoo for the longest time, and we all collectively agree that that's not a good idea. Gadgetzan Jouster is a good card in Zoo, especially the current Zoo that's running stuff like Sylvanas and Mal'Ganis, because they're cards you can actually win a joust with.
It's an okay card, but Zoo plays so many low drops that I think if the meta does slow down and you're more likely than not to face other more control-y decks than you're playing, that it would quickly lose its value.
You're completely right, but I'm saying that this is like better than a Zombie Chow.
Although I don't see it as
But it's hard to be something like a Flame
I don't see
Imp.
this as an aggressive 1-drop, but more as a defensive
Yeah.
one drop for sure. Like
So I think the
wouldn't
big question
see
is
Zoo
how much-
running things like this, but more like
Well,
Priest.
there's the argument that Zoo is not an aggressive deck, right? Zoo is a board control focused deck, or at least
it
be.
is. I agree with that.
It's an aggressive board control deck. You're not
Yes.
you're not responding to your opponent. You're definitely trying to fill out the board, and you're going face if they're not playing anything
Right.
else.
That's true. You're playing the questions and they have to answer it. But to me, this card looks like the sequel to Twilight Whelp, and that it's another thing that's trying to beat
Yeah.
Zombie Chow and can't.
Exactly. I
so
feel the
that's-
same way.
But Andres, you think there's potential here?
I think
think-
people are gonna experiment with it, and then depending. This is very meta dependent. If you're facing a lot of control decks with heavy cards, he might be pretty useless. But if you're playing against a fast meta game with a lot of aggro, I think people are gonna try this guy over Zombie Chow and see how that goes.
But you know who you're not going to try over anything else?
I think we can throw the stamp of disagreement on this.
That's what
one.
I'm doing. Yeah.
All right. So next up, we have another card which is trying to compete with another card that's in the game. We have Silent Knight, who's a common minion, and he is a 3-cost 2/2 with Stealth and Divine Shield. What do you guys think of this card?
So it's like all these 3-drops with 2/2 stats, and then they have like double abilities. Both of them have Divine Shield. One has Charge and one has Stealth, and the other one's a 2/1.
So there are two ways to look at this card. I think the one is it's a shade, but instead of the +1/+1 every turn, you get Divine Shield, or you could say it's a mini bot that costs 1 more to have Stealth, and of course is class agnostic. Neither of those seem like good trades.
This is a cool card in Arena, but doesn't get played anywhere else. And I will say, if it does get played anywhere else, it will be Druid, and not for the same reason that Shade is played in Druid. I think
What
if this
reason
gets,
would it be played in Druid?
I think a turn 1 2/2 with Divine Shield and Stealth is really good. So, and the fact that it can be like innovated out is just huge. I could see this in the token Druid that I've always wanted. You know what I mean? I've always wanted like a token, not the same type of token Druid that everyone's used to.
Yeah.
And this would fit perfectly in that type of deck. But it still remains to be seen if that's any good.
That's true, but I mean, not to spoil later cards, but would that be better than playing out a 3/4 of one of the legendaries that you can then get Divine Shield on by targeting and all that stuff? Like,
right.
It's hard to compete with getting a 3/4 out.
Well, I was, like I said, I was specifically talking about Druid, but you are right.
Yeah.
This wouldn't be run over those two cards that we'll be talking about later.
Yeah,
Totally.
you could argue
So-
this guy's probably the stickiest minion out right now, right? You can't
Well, I
target
mean,
him
anything
when you
with
play
stealth
him,
is technically
and
sticky, right?
it survives. It survives even AOE.
That's true.
Because usually
That's true.
you can kill stealth with AOE, but not even this guy.
Yeah, you'd have to like play consecrate or something.
Yeah, so you could argue he's the stickiest
Wild
minion out there
Pyromancer.
for the cost.
Wild Pyromancer, yeah, play Wild Pyromancer into consecrate, and I think it would kill him. I think.
No,
that-
actually, it wouldn't.
Oh,
No, it
does it
wouldn't.
go the other way
It would-
around?
wow,
Oh.
okay. Silent Knight.
So
okay.
you could have his uses. I mean, if you're trying to, if you're playing a deck that needs a minion to stick on the board and that your opponent cannot target, so you can abuse him, like this could be
Arcane
a
missiles.
possibility for that.
Are we throwing the stamp of disapproval on this one? Sorry, disagreement.
Disagree. No, I think we were all agreed on that. We're like, yeah, it's not very good. It's pretty
Andre
bad.
seems to disagree.
I don't know. I think is not gonna get run in any of the existing archetypes. I'm just saying that. I'm just trying to think of the uses, right? Like rather.
Okay, yeah, he's just playing devil's advocate. For
Yeah,
that, so
just trying
we'll
to think
count
like
that.
what can you fit a guy like this into?
And that's very little. Well, except in arena. So we'll see. We could all be proven wrong.
In
Watch
arena,
out
I
for
could see it
Silent
very
working
Knight.
because this is
little.
like a cheap mini bot,
Right,
right? I guess you got
right.
the stealth.
Yeah.
But
I
you
think
can
we can
think of,
say from here on out that every single card is pretty much good in Arena, including this next card, which is a tinier version of what's that other card? Ancient Watcher.
Oh, I think
The
we talked about this
two-cost-
last week, actually. I might have not.
Well, it's on your list.
I know.
Mister.
I
You
think it
set
was
up-
my bad for putting it in here. Go ahead and read it. I want to get your
Okay.
opinion on it because it confused us.
It's Argent Watchman. It's a rare minion. It's a 2-cost 2/4 and reads can't attack. Inspire can attack as normal this turn.
So, Billy, I just want to hear your opinion on this.
It's a bad card.
Okay.
That's my opinion on this card. Although, maybe like Hunter could run it. Maybe.
I guess like a mid-range hunter that does more board control. Something?
No, like I was thinking. Honestly, I was thinking more kind of a different hunter that we haven't seen, because being able, like, this is a minion that the opponent won't want to attack because obviously it can't attack, so they can just ignore it. But the hunter hero power is so valuable to them that you could play this on 2, and then on 3 play your leopard gnome hero power. You just did 4 damage because you just hero powered and played attacked with your Argent Watchman to face. I don't know.
I can see that. You're right, because it's sticky, so it can get, if you're hero powering every turn anyway, then it's kind of a more reliable
and
attack.
Because you're
turn.
doing so much damage to your opponent's face, they're going to have to deal with this Watchman, or else you're doing 4 damage every turn.
Yeah, I like it. It's kind of like a brave archer.
The stats are fantastic. I love the stats. Like, I'm thinking about things like on Paladin, you could play this turn 2, and then you can play Coghammer turn 3.
Actually, just from what I just said, I didn't even realize what I was... Before saying what I was saying, I didn't realize it. You know what I mean? I was trying to justify this card when talking
that
about it
happens
just now.
And then you convince yourself by playing devil's advocate.
I think this is a good card.
Okay.
I think this is a good
I've
card
changed
too.
my mind.
I'm going to
this is a
say
good card.
this is a bad card.
All right, disagreement.
I'm going to say these theories are a little bit too out there. There's more competitive stuff to run in this slot that doesn't require as conditional stuff. So I'm sticking with bad card.
Disagreement.
Yeah.
Next up,
fair enough.
We have Master of Ceremonies.
I misread this as Master of Cameron, and I'm like, why was a card named after Cameron?
I just... Also, why is somebody the master of Cameron?
I don't know. These are questions we need answered. But yes, read the card. This card's awesome.
Master of Ceremonies is a 3-cost 4/2 with Battle Cry. If you have a minion with spell damage, gain +2/+2.
This is the biggest buff to Kobold Geomancer this game has seen.
Right? I was trying to think what minions had spell power that cost less than 3, and it's Kobold Geomancer, Thalnos. You have Suit Spewer.
That's 3.
No, well, that
three.
is 3.
Yeah.
What else? That's it,
I
right?
think that's it.
Yeah, I think that's
I
it.
like this guy. I think
Spell power deck?
I really hope we see another minion that's 1 or 2 or 0 with spell power. But
yeah, there could be more.
I don't see it. I mean, even if you get the Dream, right? You play your spell damage creature on turn 2, and let's say it's not a 2/2. Let's say it's an actual good minion.
like a 2/3 or something.
Right. Then now you have a 2/3 and a 6/4 on turn 3. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
It still dies to Shredder, and it still dies to one of the cards we'll talk about later, and it still
but if
dies
you're like
to...
staying aggressive and making them trade into you, that's still 6 face damage you got before they could remove it, and you're also hitting stuff with spell power, and like it could be pretty cool.
I was gonna mention, I was watching my friend. He just started playing Hearthstone the other day, and I've been trying to like let him just play it and enjoy it. I don't want to go to him and be like, no, you gotta play Face Hunter right now if you want to climb out the ranks. You know? So I've been just kind of been letting him discover the game, and he ended up building a spell power mage where he grabbed all these like spell power cards, and then he got all this like low cost like arcane missiles and arcane explosion and stuff, and like something that like in the current meta game you would look at and be like, what the hell are you playing?
Yeah.
But he was playing, and granted he was at the lower ranks, he was doing really well, and at some points he would sometimes have like 2 spell power minions on the board, and those arcane explosions would become like mega deadly.
I was helping, the exact same thing happened actually on the way home in the airport. I was helping a friend kind of play through some of the Naxxramas stuff, and he was running a spell power rogue. And I realized how fun spell power mechanics were and how they didn't get used very much in the game.
Yeah, I don't get used very much. And I don't know, I think it would be cool to have like a kind of like a spell power deck where you use kind of like, like low cost
I know the point
removal.
you're making, Billy. It's a good point.
The spell damage sucks.
Yeah.
Like, that's why they don't run. My, all right, final thoughts. You guys think it's maybe good?
I want it to work. I'm gonna put faith in getting something to work with this.
And I think it could be possible if we get a couple more cards in the game. That
I think that even if this works, it's not good. Like
I'm going to say this is a minion that's powerful enough to encourage the play, though, because a 6/4 for 3 is insane stat-wise.
This is a minion that encourages a different type of play and different type of thinkings, and that this is the kind of minion that can inspire newer decks.
If this was in the meta, that takes way too long to explain. But if this was in the meta, it counters itself because, like, if people are running spell damage, then you have this 6/4. Now they play their spell damage card, which supposedly costs 2 because you're playing 2 and then this card on 3. They can on their turn 4, assuming that you passing to turn 4 for them. They can now play that imaginary spell damage card and then frostbolt this.
Yeah, but not every deck is going to be running spell power. But you make
I know. But what I'm
that
saying, I'm trying to
mirror.
point out the floor and how much health it has. It's very, very, very low on health.
But like a
considering
3/4 for 3 is really good. Like that's solid.
Right.
So getting a 6/4, it's not like you're playing like a 6/2.
And that would be like
You're just
saying like,
oh,
running patron is terrible because if your opponent's running patron, then I'll just whirlwind and then I'll be screwed.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Next
I
up.
get it.
Next up, we have the. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the second word in this. Could you present the name of this
Valdir,
guy?
or is it Cavaldir? Caldir?
Let's call it Coldir.
Cavaldir?
Let's call it Coldir because that's the closest we're going to get. We're going to ignore the V in this name.
Yeah, I think it's
The
Kaldir.
next card is Injured Coldir. And it's a 1-cost 2/4 minion with Battle Cry. Deal 3 damage to this minion.
This is a debuff to Hungry Dragon, which summons a random 1-drop for your opponent.
In honesty, I think this guy could be very powerful in Priest. And it
I
could be
think
an
that
honest
this
replacement
is-
to Zombie Chow.
I think that this card single-handedly creates a Resurrect Priest.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
if you don't pull your Circle of Healing to combo this with, or you have your Circle of Healing and you want to wait for Injured Blade Master, play this guy on 1, trade into their 1-drop or 2-drop, play Resurrect, now you have a 2/4 for 2, trade into their dude, Velen's Chosen. There's so many things you can do to make this card survive until turn 6, and he's a 1-drop.
I agree.
Like,
This guy is
this
insane in
card
Priest.
is
We've already
insane.
seen what Priests can do with minions that damage themselves but have awesome stats. With the Injured Blade Master, I think this guy
card
is the same
single-handedly might be my favorite card from the set.
I wouldn't go as far as to say that, but he is
I
very cool.
I love
disagree
I
with
love
your
Priest
assessment.
so much, and this
I know I
card
harp
is going
on
to bring
Zombie
it
Chow
back.
a lot, but okay. So this card seems worse than Zombie Chow for Priest because if we're playing it early to combat early control, you're not trying to go face, so the Zombie Chow Death Rattle really doesn't matter. The Zombie Chow has 1 less health, but it has the benefit of actually starting with that health. So if you can't actually heal this guy, you play him, the mage just hero powers him. At best, you resurrect and get a 2/4 for 2, which isn't even great for 2,
That's
because
pretty
normally
good
you
for
get a
2.
2/3 with good. It's okay, but normally you can get like a 2/3 with the
Well,
with an
the
interesting
only
ability for 2.
other 2/4 in the entire game that costs 2 requires you to spend a hero power. So technically, it's actually a 4 cost. So this card, I think you're missing the potential in this card. You can't look at Zombie Chow's downside as a downside, right? This card, even if Zombie Chow didn't have that downside, which I don't think is a downside.
Yeah.
And
This
here's
card
the,
is
here's the
still
thing with
better.
your light
Well, no,
note.
it's not. You're requiring resurrect for it. So
Or
you could either have a
Circle,
2/1 and a
or
2/4, or you could have.
Or you just your-
all of these
or just
other
your hero
cards that you
power,
happen
honestly.
to already be running.
But no, here's why I'm disagreeing with you, because you're saying if you play this guy as a 2/1, and then you play something like you resurrect him as a 2/4, you're getting a 2/1 and a 2/4 for 2 cards for 3 mana. If you played Zombie Chow and then resurrected that, you're getting 2 2/3s for 3 mana. So it's like it's barely even better.
You're doing it in a strange way because like you're most likely, or if they let's say if they play a 2-drop, right?
Right.
Your Chow is just going to trade into it directly. He's not going to kill it. Well, he's not going to kill it and survive, I should say.
Right.
Most likely, unless they're running some weird 2-attack, 3 health thing. Sorry, 2/2, which would be Mad Scientist. But point being, it's not gonna die. So like resurrect is it's going to die. So like you're going to. I'm explaining this really poorly, but the 3 health on Zombie Chow
Yeah.
doesn't matter in that scenario. With this guy, you're not wasting the health, right? And underneath the circumstance where they play something that is something that Zombie Chow would have survived from, you can just heal this guy and he'll do the same thing. And you won't have to play Resurrect.
Here's what I think about this guy and why I think he's better than Zombie Chow. Even you play him on turn 1, right? Even if you're playing against a mage and he on turn 2 is like, okay, I can just pick this guy, and he does, and he passes the turn. As a priest, you have now a bunch of options. You could play Resurrect, which gives you back a 2/4, and if you're playing against like aggro mage or something like that, that right there is pretty much GG. If the mage uses his turn 2 to hero power your guy down, and you get a 2/4 down, you can call a game right there. Also, it could be a freeze mage, and he did that. And then if you're up against a freeze mage, then you have bigger problems than your turn 1. That is almost irrelevant. So I think you that, even when playing it, even if it gets easily removed, like it still trades with what you want to trade, like Knife Juggler. If your opponent plays a Leper Gnome, you can still heal it and then trade it in, or if your opponent plays the Leper Gnome, then you're already winning because your opponent's going to your minions rather than your face.
Yeah. I'm not sold. I'll have to see it in action. I mean, there are mild benefits over Zombie Chow, but I honestly think when you aggregate the consistency factor, I think it's worse because you're...
I think Zombie Chow synergizes with less of your deck.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say is that with Resurrect, now you can guarantee that Resurrect, the worst thing that is going to bring back is a 2/4, which for 2 mana is pretty good.
You totally might be playing the 1/3, but granted that 1/3
but that's,
and like, let's be honest, later on in the game, resurrecting a Zombie Chow might be a huge liability.
Resurrecting this guy would be almost as huge. The 1 health would barely matter.
No, we're talking about the restore 5 health, and in the late game, that is a fairly important factor.
Oh, that's what you're saying.
Yeah. This guy doesn't have that liability.
That's true. I still don't see it.
I think this is something that we will have to see in action, but I think me and Andres agree on the fact that this is like, well, for me, I think this is miles ahead of Zombie Chow.
2/4 for 1 mana is just so good. And
we could talk about this
for 1 mana, though. Like, that's never going to happen.
No, it's going to happen, like, majority of games.
I think you'd be surprised.
When are you getting 2/4 for 1 mana?
Okay, so 2/4 how many times you're going to be able to heal out this guy. 2/4 for 1 mana is not going to happen all the time, but 2/3 for 3 mana is going to happen.
2/4 for 1 mana is literally never going to happen unless it's 2/4 for 1 mana and 2 cards. So it's just never going to happen. Like, it's literally impossible.
Okay, well, I see what you're saying there, but that's also a little unfair to say, because, like, the same thing can be said for Injured Playmaster. Anywho, we could talk about this card.
It also makes your hero power on turn 2 relevant, which...
I think it has potential. I'm like, card of the set, and I have my doubts.
Well,
for me, it's card of the set, because I love cards like that. But anyway,
but
I'm looking forward to seeing it in action.
Disagree stamp. I'm throwing down the banhammer. Next!
Bam!
Next up, we have Master Jouster, who is a rare card, is a 6-cost 5/6 with Battle Cry, Joust, Gain Taunt, and Divine Shield.
So an easy way to describe this is a potentially better Sunwalker.
Yeah, a Sunwalker sometimes with +1/+1.
I guess I'm wondering what decks would want to run this, and that's a difficult path to go down because we don't know what decks we're seeing.
Maybe a very like heavy like taunt druid.
Maybe a taunt warrior. Yeah, that's based on getting a lot of taunts down.
No, it's not happening.
But again, I don't know. Again, it's like the Joust is RNG, and then for 6, do you want to be relying on RNG or
RNG has a negative factor in Hearthstone. We always talk about RNG as being not a bad thing, but like a bad thing for a card. You want consistency. Because usually there's a downside to RNG. But with the Joust mechanics, there so far, at least from what I've seen, hasn't really been a downside with a lot of the cards, right? Because usually the cards are fairly good stat-wise anyway. Like a 6 mana, 5/6, granted, worse than Boulder Fist Ogre, but sometimes it's like way better than Boulder Fist Ogre. Right. And is that worth running? Maybe.
I like it. I mean, as a 6-drop, I can trade with, Emperor Thaurissan. Granted, Sylvanas is a sad trade, but if it has shield...
Yeah, you're right. It will trade against most of the 6-drops, and if you get the Divine Shield off of it, it'll be really good.
I like it. Right. I think it's a really good...
Even if you throw this down...
If you get the full effect, it's a very, very solid card. The problem is, if you don't get the full effect, it's just an okay card.
Yeah, but I think
okay is fine if sometimes it's amazing.
Yeah, if
right?
you run it in stuff like Ramp Druid and Control Warrior, you're running into stuff that you're very likely to win the joust to begin with. Especially
honestly,
just something like
I
I
Face
would only
Hunter.
see it in like heavy taunt decks. Like
Yeah.
if you're like really gonna go all out, you could even like fit in Tucson
I think you
Walkers
might
and two
even
of
run
these.
this. I think we all agree on this card being like maybe good. Well, for me, it's most likely good.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But
And like
I
honestly,
think we
honestly, we're
disagree on
judging
where the
these
card
cards
gets run.
with the bar that's already been set, right? Like with the cards that we
Yeah.
already know. Like honestly, this card just by itself, it's a really solid card. It's not bad at all. Like you could run this and win a lot of games. But since you have so many options in that spot, is a matter of does it fit
Once
the deck
again,
that you're trying to
I
build?
want to point out that like maybe the 6-drop slot isn't as competitive as we're used to next season.
Just because you have more choices.
There's gonna be more choices. I think it's gonna be
No,
all
think
no,
about
this
no,
can
no,
make
no,
clear
no,
and
not
your
because
strategy
you have
of your
more
deck.
choices. Not because you have more choices, but because the game is slow enough that you.
No, that's
can
what I
fit
meant,
more
is
of
that
it.
you have
Okay.
more slots.
Right,
Sorry,
right.
So
worded
that means you have
poorly.
more choices, right?
Yeah, it's kind of
Right,
different.
yeah. More
More choices
choices
would be
in-
more good 6
yeah.
drops, but you're saying that you might be able to fit like 3 or 4 in rather than 1 or 2.
Yes.
And yeah, I agree. And I think this is one of the good options you would have for that slot. So I see it getting a lot of use.
Next up, we have our first legendary minion, the Skeleton Knight. Which, when I first read this, I thought it said the Skeleton King, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's a Diablo thing.
Copyright infringement.
Right?
I guess they're the same
this
company,
is-
so it can happen.
Right. So this is a 6-cost minion with 7 attack and 4 health. Oh no, it has 7 attack. It reads Death Rattle, Joust. Return this card to your hand.
I don't like this card.
I think this card's pretty cool. I don't think it's playable. I think it's really cool.
Oh, I think it's cool. I just don't think it's good.
Okay, this is like Malorn 2.0. So they released
Yeah.
Malorn, and that
True.
didn't work. So they're like, okay,
Well,
let's make something
this
that
is
is like
better.
Malorn, but instead
This
it goes
is
to your
like
hand.
infinitely better.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm,
better
that's what I'm
than
saying. This is
Malorn.
Malorn 2.0 because it's like they improved on that mechanic. Because honestly, once Malorn goes to your deck, you're never playing that guy again.
Mhm.
This guy costs less. 6 is not super high. In a top deck war, this guy is amazing.
Yeah, I feel like in a top deck war he's good, but my difficulty with this deck is like, would I even want to be playing a 7/4 for 6 every turn, even if I
Right.
was guaranteed
For
that?
like the thing is like for the
Overall,
late game,
like, of
just
course
imagine
it's
like
good
a
in-
like a control matchup, right? Like a warrior versus
Yeah.
warrior matchup. If you can pull this off in a control matchup, unless they have a silence, you
Yeah.
kind of won that match already because they're just not gonna have enough removal to get rid of this guy.
Well, that's assuming you win every death rattle, though. And if it's control versus control, you're at like 50% for that.
Oh,
so
you're
it
right.
might
This
get
is a
2 or
joust.
3.
This is a joust.
Overall, this card is like.
I was thinking
I
about
think
it
we
like
can
it would
agree that
always
it's
go to your
bad.
hand.
Yeah. What were you saying, Billy?
I think overall this card is like not gonna work, but
Yeah.
of course it's gonna be good in top deck wars.
I'm
but,
just kind of
like,
bummed
how
out because
often
it's
is
going to
it
be one
gonna
of the legendaries I open and I'm like, yes! And then it's like, oh shoot, Skeleton Knight.
right. Oh damn it, Skeleton.
Maybe this is the guy that you run
Speaking
in
of
the Armor Warrior.
legendaries, you don't want to see. This is a 4-cost. We have Gormok the Impaler, and he is a 4-cost 4/4 with Battle Cry. If you have at least 4 other minions,
What
meaning
the
this
heck?
guy has to be your 5th minion, deal 4 damage.
I love
Okay,
this
so
guy.
a 4/4 that deals 4 damage is amazing.
Wow, this guy is really cool. I
Requiring
really like
4
this
other
guy.
minions is horrible.
It requires you this to be your 4th minion, and granted, cards like Implosion exist in the
No,
game.
if you have at least 4
However-
other minions, you have to have 4 minions on the board already. This
Yeah,
has to be
you
your
have to have
5th.
five.
Yeah, I know. That's what I said, right?
Yes.
This card, even underneath that condition, is like only slightly better than Dark Iron Dwarf.
But you can
right?
you can target this damage, right? It says deal
Right.
4 damage, so you can target that.
Yeah.
That's actually a really good point, Billy.
You can
if you have that
target
many
Dark Iron
minions,
Dwarf, though.
oh man,
I think
Yeah.
this guy is really good. I could
I
like
think
let's say
he
in
is
the
unplayable.
Aggro Pally, whoa, this guy is dangerous. Imagine like Aggro Pally where you can muster for battle and have a bunch of stuff in the board early.
But
Yeah.
get
even
removed.
still, Dark Iron Dwarf is better. like, well, not better, but in the types of decks that you want to be running this guy in, majority of the time when this is in your hand, you're like, I wish this was a Dark Iron Dwarf, because at least I could play it.
I don't know. I think this
I-
is one of the guys that I'm gonna experiment some stuff with because he
I
just
think
seems
I
so
will,
good for an
yeah.
aggressive deck. Sorry, what were we gonna say?
Oh, sure, yeah. I think I would try him in Zulok just because in my games I do with Haunted Creeper and some of the other stuff, I do end up with pretty huge boards throughout that game. So I think I'd experiment with them, but I definitely see it as problematic in almost every deck just because he's so conditional. And especially as a 4-drop, you're like never going to get his ability. So
Alright.
it's really tough to justify.
Oh, never say never.
Yeah.
I disagree with everyone here. I don't think it works.
I'm not saying it works. I'm saying I'm going to
I think
test
that he's
it, but
still
yeah.
solid. I think as a 4-drop, you can still drop it even if without the
Okay,
thing. And then if you do get the thing, it's even better.
Yeah,
Like
but
think about
Dark Iron Dwarf always gets the thing. Anywho, next up, we have a 3... I'm loving the addition of smaller legendaries, by the way.
Yeah, this
yeah,
is
I
great.
really like this one
Super
legendaries
cool.
thing. Yeah.
Speaking of small legendaries, see what I did is set up a transition.
Nice.
This is pretty good.
I like
it. We have a name that I'm not going to try to pronounce, so I'll let Bryan take this one.
Darkbane?
Idis?
Idis. Yeah.
Alright.
Idis.
Idis Darkbane. It's a 3-cost 3/4 minion, so think Spider Tank without mech. When you, and it bolds you, that's interesting.
Yeah.
When you target this minion with a spell, deal 3 damage to a random enemy.
Okay.
Man, this card and her sister just scream priest to me. They're just
What
saying,
about
like, put me in
aggro
priest.
paladin though? Like, isn't this
Aggro
super
paladin
good in
could
aggro
really work.
paladin?
Yeah, aggro paladin could work really well too. You're right about that.
I think that this sister, the one we're talking about now, gets run in aggro pally, and the other one gets run in priest.
I'm kind of with you on that. I can see
You
this
could
also
run
going
in both,
priest, though.
honestly.
I think this
Both
one
is
is
both.
better than the other one, but I like both of them.
I like
Really?
this one
I
a
like
little better.
I think the other one is better.
I like this one a little better just because I think you can get a little more value out of it.
We keep referencing the other
The
one.
other one.
So we should probably talk about the other one.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm not going to try and pronounce this name again until I've heard it. So, Bryan, how do we pronounce this name?
We're gonna go to Fiola Lightbane.
Fiola?
Yeah.
But that's a J, right?
Yeah, I know, but sometimes that's
Fiola?
how silent
Okay,
J's
okay.
work.
Okay.
Ayola?
Fiola, yeah.
Fiola
with that.
Lightbane is a 3-cost 3/4. Whenever you target this minion with a spell, gain Divine Shield.
Here's the reason why I think the other one is better. Not that this one is bad, because this one is also good. But I think the other one is better just because you can get the effect off several times in one turn.
Right? Well,
That's a fair point.
you could get Lightbane off twice in one turn, right? You use the shield, attack into something, use it again.
True, you could.
Which
you
I don't
can
think
get
you're
2
going
divine
to
shields,
use it.
But with this one, I'm saying you can kill so many minions and do such a devastating turn.
Right.
Because with
I
the
mean,
other
it's
one, you can
more
only
board
attack once, so you
impactful,
have a
but
you have a
priest-
potential of 3 damage. I guess they come down to different situations and what you need.
Right. They're both very situational.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of of 2 minds on this because my big thing whenever you're playing a card about buffs is, dumping a lot of cards into one thing and then losing it. What I like about the other sister is that you're more likely to get her effect off independent of the card itself.
I kind of wish they were 4/3s. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
no problem.
it kind of
Ooh,
frustrates
no,
me
I
that it can
actually
be
like that
Shadow
this
Word
is a
Pain.
3/4. I'm glad that
Because,
they're not
like,
4/3s.
Shadow Word Pain, at least for the Divine Shield one, I want him to have, or her to have 4 attack, because I think Priest is going to be one of the strongest classes going into the next expansion, and if my 3-drop can get Shadow Word Pain, my 3-drop that I'm relying heavily on sticking on the board, I'm going to be really upset about it. I don't know,
That
I
is
feel
true.
like that's very
But then that means it's a
deliberate.
buff to Priest, and I want Priest to be good.
Priest
so.
is, I think Priest is
Right.
gonna. This is his redemption over here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because there's
so
so many
it's
good cards that are
resurrection.
coming in that are gonna synergize so well with their cards.
Speaking of classes that need a redemption, we have a Rogue card,
Oh, we're going at our class cards now. All right.
right?
Are we all agreed that those last 2 cards are really, really good
Yeah,
for
they're
drops?
Right,
they're
right,
really
yeah,
good.
yeah, I think
I can't argue with that. I
We
mean,
can
that-
count that as one agreement,
I would
though.
say
Okay.
that's one of the most obvious stages of power creep that we've seen so far.
I agree with you. It's the only, pretty much the only, some of the very few
No,
cards
I
you look
don't
at and
agree
just say,
with
"This
that
is better."
either because mech matters. Like, honestly, like, mech
does.
matters quite a lot.
You're right. But I guess just because there are
mech-
also other
mech-
3/4s for
mech
3.
matters,
so
but-
few.
This is a conversation for a whole nother time because I could talk about this for legitimately hours because I've had conversations about this all week.
All
Mech
right.
matters. We can talk about it some other time. It'll take forever.
All right. Let's go.
We have a 5-cost rogue card. His name is Shadow Pan Cavalry. Mm-hmm. He's a common minion. Yep. He has 3 attack and 7 health, and reads combo plus 3 attack. So sometimes a Boulder Fist Ogre.
So my initial instinct was to just pan this card entirely because I was not. I was like, yeah, just play a Boulder Fist Ogre. The one mana doesn't matter that much. And then I realized coining this guy out on 4 is pretty good.
Yeah,
if you have a tempo,
very good
deck.
Right, assuming that you get coin every game.
Well, I'm not saying every game. The other thing is backstab on 5 is pretty good. So. Other than that, though, he does get clunky out of those 2 use cases. I mean, prep.
I think this card is terrible.
Okay, terrible is going way too far.
No, I think this card is terrible.
Why?
Boulder Fist Ogre already exists in the game, and Boulder Fist Ogre sees 0 play.
True.
Boulder Fist Ogre is also a 6-drop, though.
Yeah.
And this guy's a 5-drop, right? Yeah. And sometimes a 4-drop.
Uh-huh.
I think the games, especially because, like I said, Priest is going to be big. You're going to get Shadow of Death. So the games that this guy happens and you get his effect, you're just going to end up with a 6-7. And majority of the time, he's not going to get coined out, right? That's like innovating out Shade, and that's a
fair point.
That's the same amount of cards you need for that.
Likely case, sure.
Right.
I mean, you can use coin, you can use prep, you can use backstab. There's a lot of stuff you can use with it.
You gonna prep for nothing?
No,
Are you gonna prep for
use
nothing?
like prep Fan of Knives, or use prep. I don't know, any other spell, prep Eviscerate.
Right, but I mean, that's still using 3 cards.
Also, you have to think about the spot that this guy comes down. This guy comes down a turn before Thorson and a bunch of important 6-drops, and he trades up with them and survives. So I think calling this card terrible is, I don't know, is maybe not giving it enough credit.
I'm throwing the disagreement on this one. I think this card's terrible.
I don't think it's terrible, but I do think it requires a very different type of rogue than we're seeing right now.
Which could be nice.
Be a thing.
I'd love to see a more minion-oriented
Some
type
rogue
of
cards are getting me excited, but I get that was my initial impression, Billy, so I don't blame you for having it. But you forget this is also a Pandaren, so automatic points.
A samurai Pandaren.
Next up, we have Flame Lance.
This is terrible. Go ahead, read the card.
This is a 5-cost, deal 8 damage to a minion.
Okay, so here's what I heard about this card. I agree. This is a debuff to Mage in Arena because it's a common card.
Right?
This is now making Mage
This is a good card in Arena, though. So
that's a fair point. That's actually a good point.
It's kind of a buff to Mage in Arena.
Yeah, fair enough. It's a terrible, terrible card in Constructed, though, just because you can be playing
Are you sure? Are you sure?
Not a fan of this card. It doesn't seem like mages are struggling for more damage to minions, though.
Yeah, Polymorph is just better.
Polymorph gets run on occasion, and this is better than Polymorph.
No, this is so much worse than Polymorph.
Right,
this is
okay,
1,000 times worse.
So allow me, it's 1 less mana for Polymorph, and it's only bad against Death Rattle.
What is? Flame Lance?
Yeah.
It's bad against Death Rattle, Divine Shield, things like Ysera. It's terrible compared to Polymorph.
You can't throw it at the enemy
it's another mana.
So if you're not playing against a deck who runs big minions, this is the worst card in the world.
Yeah.
All right,
I don't know. This one, really, I'm not convinced about this
The
one.
charade is over.
The charade is over. This is a bad card.
Yes, okay, there. I was impassioned to convince
This is
you
a
of that.
nerf to Spellslinger.
I don't know. Like 8 damage is a lot of damage, but 5 mana is a lot, and spending 5 mana to just deal 8 damage to a minion.
Like in Druid or something, I could maybe see it, but in Mage,
no, you can't give Druid hard removal. Druid's not allowed to have hard removal.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
but I'm just saying in Mage.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's where it dies.
Unless like really big minions that get removed with this card become really popular and a thing, and then this card, it becomes like the easiest way to remove those. I really don't see anyone running this.
However, if it read deal 8 damage, then this card
that would be amazing.
Right.
If it was just deal 8 damage.
Let's just move on. We can name like new cards. Right,
Okay.
that could be a thing maybe one day, but probably not.
Yeah, just because it's only 2
power
minions,
creep.
it's just I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
cut it for
So
me.
excited about this next card. I really want to talk about this one.
Dude, I love the artwork for this card.
Yes.
We have Tuskar Jouster, who is a rare minion with
Paladin minion.
Right, he's a paladin minion. It's a 5-cost, 5/5. Reads Battle Cry, Joust, Restore 7 health to your hero.
So this is a conditional heal bot with it's a 5/5 instead of a 3/3.
So I hear Dragon Paladin in here.
I don't agree with that. However, I think this is a 2 of in most Paladin decks.
Yeah, you think just instead of heal bot? Because you really need to get that heal off. You could be losing
I
games
would say
for those
like
stats.
Dragon Paladin with this guy instead of Healbot because you get that 5/5 stats, and then you also are running a bunch of big dudes, right? A bunch of big dragons in your deck that are heavy.
Yeah.
It's true.
Agreed.
To me, this card
Although-
entirely comes down to what the meta is and what your joust chances are. Because if you're running in a meta where your joust chances are 40 or 30% against most decks, and you need the heal, it could be incredibly damaging to you.
I really think this was
meta
a
that's-
response to seeing how bad the Dragon Pally did because they were
Like, this is amazing against aggro.
I don't think so. Like, this doesn't scream dragon to me. It screams slow, and dragons happen to be slow. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't correlate
it definitely
with me.
says
but I
control
understand.
paladin to me,
Why
and
I
whether
say-
control
why I say-
integrates dragon or not.
Pally Dragon is just because what that deck is missing is being able to prolong the game a little longer so you can actually get those big minions out there that you can and play your game plan.
Right, it
and
would
the thing
work
is,
in
like,
Dragon Pally.
Healbot sometimes is not enough for that because you don't want to play Healbot ever on the 5th turn. While this guy, you do want to play it in the 5th turn. And then
That's a
you can
good
also
point.
get the heal. And this guy trades with most of the stuff the other people is going to play in their 5th turn.
Yep.
And that's another good point. If you're playing him on curve, especially against aggro, you're very likely to win the joust, and that's when you need that
against
health.
an aggro
against
deck,
control, that health probably isn't going to make or break the game for you, and then it still becomes a good on curve draw.
Yeah,
so
I think this guy
Right.
is solid.
yeah,
Yeah, I think we all agree. This card's cool.
Yeah!
Agreed,
And
Snap.
the artwork just gives it bonus points.
Right? That turtle is amazing. Oh my gosh.
Love
if you
it.
guys haven't seen this artwork, you need to go check it out. It's awesome. The turtle
Yep.
is incredibly happy with
Turtle's
whatever's
incredibly
happening.
happy.
I know, right?
Yeah,
He's super
it's
happy to be
amazing.
there. I mean, he's
Next
gaining a bunch
up-
of life.
I like
Right?
this artwork too.
He's gaining all the life. Next up, we have another spider tank equivalent. We have a 3-cost 3/4 with battle cry. Oh, sorry, it's a common mage card. It's a 3-cost 3/4 battle cry. Add a random spell to each player's hand.
So I see this as the hidden text is you play this until you get those other legendaries, and then you replace it in your deck if you were playing.
But again, this is what I'm saying is like the 3 slot, like if you don't have 3/4 stats anymore, it's almost like you don't want to play it anymore. 3/4 is
Yeah,
becoming
it's
like
rough.
the new standard for the 3 drops.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about this card? Like, obviously, you're both getting a spell, but Mage typically has a lot of things that buff those spells or make those spells worth playing.
Anything that reads "give my opponent a card," I'm not
Yeah.
thrilled about. I don't want this
Yeah.
card in any of my decks ever.
I'm
Which
with
is-
you.
Which is
there.
another reason I don't think it's power creep. But like I said,
I'm with you, actually, Billy. From what I've seen of this set, I do not call this set power creep like I've seen in Magic and other games. Like, most of their cards are pretty conditional. I think the 3/4 stat base is maybe the one example, but again, apart from the legendaries, they're not really overpowering the cards that have those stats.
I think there's definitely a little bit of a power creep because if you compare the other cards, before the strongest 3 drop was a vanilla 3/4.
Let's
now
not
you have
talk
3/4s
about this because
with
this
text.
can go on for
Yeah.
legitimately hours. We can talk about this on another show. That will
But
take.
that is a good point, Andres. I
Yeah.
understand there are points to be made for power creep. Just the impression I've been getting
And I'm not
so
saying
far
it's a bad thing. It's a natural thing in this type of game.
Sure. So,
Right.
Spellslinger, would you play this, Andres? Because B and Billy are like, nope.
This is
we're out.
interesting. Like for a synergistic, like if you're playing a mage deck that maybe wants to play a lot of spells with like Flame Waker and stuff like that, it might be good, especially if you're playing against a deck that might
like,
maybe not
random
have the chance
spell
to squeeze
is-
in like a random spell that maybe doesn't synergize with them.
Random spell can be like Tree of Life, so it doesn't synergize with your Flame Waker. You know, like
That's true.
random spell. Can
Yeah,
be
it could be
bad,
it could be
like,
anything, but you know,
high-cost
like
things.
they play Unstable Portal in that deck.
Yeah. I
That's
don't know. I'm pretty sure the
incredibly
only thing
different.
this will spell is your defeat. So
Right, I agree.
Yeah, this guy, I don't know, he seems interesting, but I
Okay.
definitely don't see it in competitive play because in competitive play you don't want to be adding stuff to your opponent's hand that you don't know what it is.
Gotcha. All right.
Next up
Fair enough.
is Argent Lance. It's a rare card. It's a 2-cost 2/2 weapon with Battle Cry, Joust, +1 durability.
Important
So
note, it is a
sometimes-
paladin card.
Yes, sorry, it's a paladin card.
No
so
worries.
sometimes this card is a Stormforged Axe without Overload.
Yeah.
That's not very
like
good.
this card. I mean, okay, so it's filling a weapon slot that Paladin really doesn't have. It's only playable. Well, okay, so here's the difficulty with this card
Hold
that
on,
I just realized. Is if you play it on 2, then you can't muster.
Right.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh.
So I have a theory behind cards like this and Poisoned Blade and
They're
stuff
traps.
like that. No, they're not traps. I think there's an incredible weapon that they haven't revealed yet, and I think that they're balancing out Blingtron with bad weapons like this.
Maybe. That's possible.
Maybe. Although
This card isn't terrible.
We're gonna do a little flashback. I think Poison Blade might have more to offer than we have seen so far, but
Right,
that's a discussion
but
for another time.
Yeah. It's,
So this card, is it, I mean, I just talked myself out of this card because of muster. Like, I thought it was okay until I
muster.
realized that.
I'm
And now
not
I
a fan
don't
of it
like it.
either. Like Stormforged Axe is in the game already and does the same thing, you just with one overload, right?
Yeah.
And you don't even have to do the reveal thing and stuff. And that card
Yeah.
is not playable, right? People don't play that card.
a point that Trump made, which is a fairly interesting point. For 1 extra mana, you can guarantee the durability and get a Divine Shield in
Exactly.
Coghammer.
I totally forgot about that. You're right. You're not even missing the slot. Yeah, I don't like this card.
I'm not a fan of
Bad
this card. Yeah, it's very average.
All right.
And
Speaking of cards that we're probably not... Well, you guys are probably fans
I
of
thought
it.
you were just going to make the transition to speaking of cards. I'm like, this is going to be lazy, Billy.
Speaking of cards we're not a fan of, but you guys will probably be a fan of this card most
I
likely
love
because
this card.
you seem to just, for some reason, love this take on Warrior. We have
Yes.
a 2-cost Warrior spell named Bolster, which is a sweet name for a card.
Yep.
Give your taunt minions +2/+2.
I love
Okay.
the artwork in this card too.
So this card is
Yes,
going to be
me too.
amazing once they reveal the card for Warrior that gives all your minions taunt.
Right. They need a 0-cost spell that reads, give every single one of your minions taunt. And if that doesn't exist, these
So-
cards that they're pushing...
That was a card for Priest before. I mean, not exactly it, but very close.
So I feel like
beta.
people are gonna make it. It's happening.
Yep.
Armor warrior or defense warrior or undestructible warrior or whatever you kind of want to call it.
Turtle Warrior is
Undying
my
warrior.
name.
Basically a warrior that just doesn't die and plays a bunch of taunts and armor gains
But, like,
and extends
even
into
in
fatigue.
that deck, even in that hypothetical deck, I don't think you run this card ever.
I kind of agree with you, but on the other hand, I don't. Just because I want to believe.
Okay.
I don't actually think this card's very good on its own. I think it's too conditional, and even having 2 taunt minions can be difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, but if you do have 2 taunt minions though, that is 4 stats for 2 mana.
That's a fair point.
Right. But it's a
Like,
deck
let's say
slot.
you play like a Noyotron and then like I don't know, Tangential Master.
No, dude. I don't know. It's all right. We're never gonna agree on this
Hey,
card.
what
I don't
about
think it's gonna work.
the Footman? You could play a Noyotron and the Footman. There you go.
This is my lowly squire of the set. I'm going to make this card work if it kills me. I'm going to make, Goldshire Footman into a Noyotron, into Ironford Grizzly,
This might
into
be
Sinjin
Goldshire
Shieldmaster, into
Footman's
Sledge Belcher,
time.
into whatever that new taunt for 6 is.
I won't let this happen. I'm not gonna this is no.
the
I don't
possibility.
think I have a
So-
7-drop taunt in Warrior, though.
Let's talk about a real card.
Okay.
We have probably my second favorite card of the set right
I
now.
love this card.
I'm kind of scared of this card, but we'll get into that in a sec. This is a common Warlock card. It is a demon. His name is Wrathguard. He is a 2-cost, 4 attack, and 3 health minion. And his effect reads, when this minion takes damage, also deal that same amount of damage to your hero.
Right. So you can kind of see this guy as a turn 2 Flame Imp, if you just assume you're going to take 3 damage over the course of the game.
I've heard arguments against this card.
Yeah, me too.
People have said that this card is bad because in the late game, you can't play it because then they're going to shield slam your dude for 30 damage and you'll die. However,
I hadn't thought of that. That is very true. They can also just fireball it, and that's like duplicating
Right.
the
Wait,
fireball.
is that true?
yes.
Oh,
At
Lord.
that point in the game, most likely, if you're in the top deck situation, where Wrathguard is your only choice, most likely you're already in the losing position anyway. Right?
So this, I can see this as like an all-in warrior, because you're right.
I'm still going here.
Sorry.
Yeah, let Billy finish. He has a point.
In the type of decks that Wrathguard would be played in, Flame Imp is just as worse in that scenario, because you're dealing damage to your face. Granted, you're not dealing 30 damage to your face, but you're still behind and you're dealing damage to your face. Flame Imp is still an auto-include in every type of deck that this card would be run in. So I think that Wrathguard is also going to be a double auto-include in Zoo and other types of aggressive Warlock decks.
What do you think about the idea that in Zoo, if you have enough of these cards that are hurting you, you can like maybe do some Molten Giants as a finisher in it if you're creating that advantage so early?
Molten
like
Giant
Wrathguard
doesn't
and
have charge, and Doomguard has charge and only has 3 less attack.
That's a fair point. Well, as a finisher, I more mean as a kind of like a Sea Giant, like just control the board and like throw taunts on him kind of thing.
I think,
like, I wonder if a single Molten Giant could become
Sea
playable.
Giant's better though, right?
Probably. I don't have Sea Giant, so I haven't been able to.
This guy can be super scary, because in my eyes, like, this could lead to one of the fastest, more aggressive decks that we've seen, right? Like, if you get like Flame Imp start into this guy, and I mean, I don't know if this is just a hypothetical, but you could play like what is the 5/6 that deals 5 damage to
Pit Lord?
The Pit Lord. And then you're running like Molten Giants and stuff like that. Like,
so you just like try to get yourself hurt as fast as possible.
Yeah, you hurt yourself fast, but you take advantage of that. But then you're also hurting your opponent fast. Also, thinking about that scenario where you get dealt 30 damage, I don't know. It feels like in a deck where you're using this guy, if the warrior can build 30 armor, you've already lost that game. You haven't lost that game because they dealt 30 damage to this guy, but because you just got owned in the entire game.
There will be a Hearth Trollden video at one point where somebody dies to a shield slam, and it will be hilarious. However, they would have lost that game anyway.
So it's also interesting that it can come out of shredders.
Yeah, well, that's true. Wow, that's very true.
That is silly gross. Now, there are 5 worst case scenarios from Shredder.
Although this could be also a good scenario for you, right? Yeah. Like, if they get it and you find the way to use it
like a mirror match,
opponent.
Control mirror match, your bland warrior. You've got like a bunch of armor dealt up. You kill their Shredder. Geez. Oh, Wrathguard comes out. Sweet. They win the game.
It's going to be fun. I like this card.
The other thing I was going to say is, like, I can compare this guy to people like, or to cards like Fell Reaver, which is like huge card for low mana cost, but it has like a big liability attached to it.
Yeah.
So
I don't think this is anywhere near as big as Felguard, though. I mean, Fell Reaver.
Yeah, I feel Fell Reaver has a bigger liability, but it's also an 8/8.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this next card.
This next card is going to go by, I'm assuming, extremely quickly. This is a common Warlock card. It is a spell. Its name is Demon Fuse. It's a 2-cost. Give a demon +3/+3. Oh yeah, and it gives your opponent a mana crystal.
So I wish I made this up, but it's more like Demon Lose.
Nice.
This is the play. You play your
No.
Okay, I wanted to address something real quick.
Okay.
There's a very specific reason that Wrathguard is actually 4 attack instead of 4 health, and 3. Sorry, other way around.
Okay.
There's a specific reason why Wrathguard is the way that it is. In that type of card, Wrathguard, you want it to have 3 attack and 4 health, but it has 4 attack and 3 health. Now, the reason why is because Demon Fuse would actually be a good card if you could combo it with Wrathguard and other low drops, but Wrathguard puts it in BGH range, which is perfect on-curve response to
I disagree with your point about it being good in that case, but Andres, what were you saying?
No, it would totally be good. That's a turn 3.
I was just going to say, like, a card like this just makes me think of, like, an all-in, I'm going to kill you so fast type of Warlock that just, like, doesn't care about late game, doesn't care about damaging itself, but it's just, I'm just going to kill you right now.
Here's why I disagree with that. The +1/+1 that you get from playing this instead of Demon Wrath could not possibly help you more than them getting a mana crystal. Like them getting a mana crystal is just going to counter you way more than that +1/+1 is going to help
if you're
you.
running Demon Fire in the same deck.
Yeah, well, I don't think you need 4.
What if?
No, but you totally need 3.
What if in a deck? But like the thing in a deck like that, like where you're running Flame Imp, you're running Wrathguard, and then you're running Pit Lord, where you're already ahead of stats, and you don't with like super low mana costs. Maybe giving your opponent a mana crystal is like not that bad, especially if you can like buff him super. Like imagine just getting like an 8/8 or like a 7/4 on turn 3. You know.
Right.
I don't even like playing buff cards like this very much when it doesn't give your opponent a mana.
You can get a 5/4 Flame Imp.
I don't like it. Are you guys like? Do you guys actually think this is an okay card, or are you just playing complete devil's advocate?
I'm honestly just trying to picture it like a deck like that because like all these cards that they're putting out right now just seem like in that path.
So you think?
Well, I guess that's something we're gonna disagree on because.
So you're with me, Billy? You think it's terrible?
I was being devil's advocate.
Okay.
All right. Next up, we have a 2-cost 2/1. Sorry. I'm sorry. I rushed into the card. Beginner's mistake. Druid of the Saber. It's a common card, obviously a druid card. It's a 2-cost 2/1. Choose 1, charge, or +1/+1 and stealth.
Okay, so you get a 3/2 a stealth, or you get the Murloc 2/1 a charge for 2.
I believe both of the things here are going to be beasts. I don't think they've actually said that yet or not. But everything so far that it has been named Druid of the something has been a beast. When transformed.
This is a card I'm not sure I have an opinion on.
I like this card.
I think it's not good.
I like this.
Okay.
I think a 3/2 with stealth for 2 is super strong. And then you can also use the charge to finish him off with like a Savage Roar or something like that.
That's fair.
I think that this card is not necessarily bad, but
especially
it's
if it
bad
turns
in the
into a
type
beast.
of decks. It's bad in the type of decks I want to run it in, because if it is a beast, I want to run it in a beast deck. However, this is bad in a beast deck, because in a beast deck, I want to be controlling the board early, and I want to actually have stuff on the board.
What if it's
this
like a
doesn't
super aggressive beast
attacking.
deck that tries to stampede your opponent?
Okay,
but that's not the beast deck that I want. That doesn't sound fun.
Why don't you want a beast deck? Like, why is a 3/2 stealth on 2 not good for controlling the board? Because that can trade up with whatever their food drop is.
Yes, it can trade up, but it has 2 health, right? So it's not. It's,
you're
it's
not
never
going to get.
What would you be playing instead
always
on 2? Like, would you be wild growthing?
Wild Growth Wrath.
Okay.
The other druid card, which we'll talk about.
What would you imagine as a beast deck? Like a controlled beast deck?
Yeah, kind of like control up until turn 4, and then turn 5, and then destroying your opponent.
So
keeping in mind
like
turn 4
like
and turn 4,
deck.
turn 4 and 5 for druid. I'm thinking you're at like 7 mana.
Yeah, I don't know. I like having a beast with stealth because then you can, trigger your what is it? Druid of the Fang.
I really love this guy. Yeah, with Druid of the Fang,
it's just hard
that's
for
amazing.
me to see this card actually working, but I understand everyone else's opinion. I don't want to disagree.
I think it has decent stats. The 3/2 with stealth is actually a really good 2-drop. One of the best in the game, I would say, because even like Gilbin Stalker, that's pretty good. And then just the ability of being able to choose and the versatility that gives you, I think that makes it a very solid card. And for a beast druid, I could see it being run.
It appears that Bryan has made a mistake.
Did I make a mistake?
You put cards in the wrong order, and now I have to go through the effort of moving them.
Wait, which card?
The 2 druid cards aren't next to each other.
Oh, I didn't put classes with each other. This is true.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
That's fine. We can just discuss them as they come.
Yeah, I know. I was just being silly.
But this one has my stamp of approval. I love this card.
I thought we already threw the disagreement hammer on this one. I disagree. I don't think it's a good card.
Okay.
Oh, which one?
Druid of the Saber.
We're disagreed. Yep, I'm right in the middle, and you two are. Yeah, I can't decide. This next card, though, I'm excited about.
Which one? There's
go for it, and we'll see if I'm excited.
Okay.
I don't know which one you're about to do.
This card is another druid card.
Okay,
it's a rare card. I cannot pronounce that. You want to go for that?
Darnassus Aspirant, is that thrown around?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
All of the lore stuff, all Warcraft stuff, I need to hear first. That way I can pronounce it. Because I'm never gonna. Anyway, Darnassus, dude.
Aspirant, I think.
Yeah.
Like Spire Aspirant.
All
I
right.
don't know.
2
Never seen the
cost,
word.
2/3 minion with Battle Cry, gain a mana crystal,
Empty
Death
mana
Rattle.
crystal.
Sorry, yes. Gain an empty mana crystal. Death Rattle, destroy that mana crystal.
So this is like a temporary wild growth, but you're
love
getting
it.
a 2/3
I
for as
love
long
it.
as you have that wild growth.
I love this card.
Right.
Also, this is terrible to get out of Shredder.
Right. Shred enough.
Why,
Yeah,
why,
'cause
why
if
do
you get
think
this out of
why
a
do you think
shredder-
it's terrible.
If you get this out of a Shredder, you don't get the battle cry, and then when it dies, you
you're
lose
right,
a mana
you're
crystal.
right. Don't get the battle cry. I hadn't thought of
So,
that. Yeah. If
yeah.
this card gets summoned into the battlefield by any way,
Yeah. It's
Death
or
Launch,
like if you steal it with like a
confirmed good
mind
card.
control tech or something like that.
yeah. Oh, yeah. But that's it. I really
I
like
had
this because
not
it's a
thought
way to
of that.
wild growth while keeping tempo.
Oh my god, yeah,
Um,
that is what I was about to say. The worst
think
downside
everyone's
of wall growth is that you're so
undervaluing-
vulnerable after you cast it.
I think everyone's undervaluing how important the destroy a mana crystal is.
Oh, it's
The Death
huge.
Rattle,
I agree.
right? Everyone's calling this a temporary wild growth, and yeah, it's a temporary wild growth. But how often, like underneath the circumstance that you were quote unquote vulnerable when playing wild growth, you may as well just like Wrath, right? Because it does kind of the same thing.
But
This
then you don't
card
have
is
wall growth.
because you play this card and you get your temporary wild growth and it dies on the same turn. Like you're not gonna, in my head, you're very rarely gonna get the advantage from this card.
Oh, I think very often you're
You're
going to be
definitely
surviving
gonna
a
get
turn.
it often, yeah.
Like 2/3s typically survive a turn.
I
early on
really
in the
don't
game.
think so.
So here's how I see
Flame
it.
Imp, Fiery War Axe, Frostbolt. Insert anything that does 3 damage here before turn 2.
So here's how I see it. In matchups like Control Warrior, I think wall growth is still gonna be better because it's just a permanent, especially if you get it in turn 2, it's just a permanent point from that point on. But in matchups like Hunter, wall growth is one of the worst cards you can have. Sometimes it's just dead in your hand, even if you draw it from turn 2.
But that's what I mean. Even in the worst matchups, right? The not the worst matchups, the best matchups for this card. The card where you want to be playing a minion on board to defend against stuff, but also have the advantage of wild growth. It's gonna die. Quick shot, kill command.
And I'm totally fine with that. If I pass the
Yeah, I
turn
don't
and
think
the
kill
Hunter
command would hit
kills
it, but-
kill commands or quick shots on the second turn and then passes
But like
back
even
to me,
their
I am
minions
fine with
trade
that.
into it. Knife
Or if he
juggler.
trades the minions, if he trades that knife juggler into this guy, I'm super happy.
That is true. Like it does
You
aggro.
sure? Because
It-
then
it-
on turn
it
3,
pulls
what do you
aggro.
do?
Shade.
Yeah, you just
Okay.
continue on normally. He just spend the tempo removing your creature because he cannot leave it alive. And then if he doesn't, then you get the benefit of wall growth. You can play your Shredder in turn 3 and then trade with this guy, and then you're still in turn 4.
I think
feel like
my
there's no
difficulty with this
downside to
card
this.
is there is a downside, and my difficulty with this card is if it becomes a more controlled meta, you may just rather play wild growth and be able to keep.
Yeah, that's
that,
what I was saying. Against a control matchup,
yeah.
wall
I think
growth
this
might
is,
still be better because of the permanent.
I think this is another
Quality.
one of the disapprovement cards.
Disagree,
This
you
is
mean?
one- yeah, we're not gonna.
I think you're gonna be surprised how much Driz are gonna run this card. I think this card is
Yeah.
super solid.
I think it actually will
I
make
think-
it into a lot of decks.
I think at max it's a 1-off.
yeah.
and
no,
maybe
I
2-off.
definitely a 2-off. We'll see. I have high hopes for this
Okay.
guy.
Here's another card I think that I'm very
You
confused
could
on. You guys
say
can tell me if it's
that
good.
we are confused about this next card
Oh.
because it's a priest card that's an epic card,
Yep.
and it's called Confuse.
Aha!
We made a pun.
Yep.
It's a 2-cost spell that reads swap the attack and health of all minions.
So here's where I want to see this card is I want to see a Divine Spirit deck for Priest that just plays minion after minion with high health. Then you Circle of Healing to get everything back up to high health. Divine Spirit a couple of them, play Confuse and hit face and win.
That could totally happen. Actually, not even joking, that could work.
Yeah, isn't it a cool idea? I really like that deck. Because
Right.
suddenly they have every minion you have is a huge threat to deal like 15 or 20 damage.
This
So they have
card-
to like remove all
This
of
card
them.
is dangerous, especially in Priest.
Yeah. Not to mention if they have taunts up, all those taunts will probably become really ineffective. Totems all die. Or all those
Totems
utility
hold that. And
totems.
for 2 mana, this is not a big investment either. Like, you
Yeah.
can squeeze it in like the later turns for a killing blow
You might-
really easily. Or what's
be
the
able
name
to
of
combo with Light Bomb.
the new card, the 1/8 that heals you every time you hero power?
That just got better.
You could play that card and be like a stall
No.
mechanic for a long time, and then it's 8 damage.
Yeah, no, it's 16 damage with Divine Spirit.
Yeah, you're
so.
right. Yeah, you're right.
Alright, whatever. I think the card's cool, and that it could work at like rank 20.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think this card could work at higher ranks, especially
Okay,
if you have a
alright,
deck that is built around
let me
it.
rephrase that. I think this card can work, but not in the way you guys just explained. Yes, it could work in some type like a Divine Spirit crazy nonsense thing that could actually work. But doing stuff like, I don't know, the Tournament Medic card with this, I don't know. I don't see that working.
Well, you still want to be playing cards that are already good. Like, you don't want to be throwing a bunch of cards
Yeah,
that
you just
wouldn't
play
be
one,
willing to run
one
otherwise.
tournament medic, or you just play
I
cards
was
that are
thinking more
Death
you run
Lords.
like Shade. I was
Yeah.
thinking you run Shade. Like
Wait,
that was
Shade, why
Shade?
is Shade good at this? Shade always has the same attack and
yeah.
health.
What's the point of
because
Shade?
because assuming that you're doing this combo thing, right? You're also running Divine Spirit, and Shade's a card that's always on board, and when you lag,
I
it
don't
can
see
trade
this at
into
all
stuff.
for,
Yeah, I don't see
for
it.
like keeping a card on board. What I see is building a large board
Yeah.
that the opponent can't deal with all of your high health minions. If they are, they're wasting everything. And suddenly every high health minion
Yeah.
becomes a potential
I
threat.
imagine
so they
like
can't
Death
possibly
Lords
keep up
or
with all
like
the ones they're
the
playing.
1/8 stuff like that.
Because like if it was just one, then you might as well be doing the inner fire strategy because it's not really any different. But if it's a whole
Yeah,
board
you're
of
right.
minions with high
But
health,
like, as soon as you lose board, you lose with that type of thing.
I'm
right?
not saying it's the only. You could like run one of.
Yeah,
in
you
a
run
priest
one,
that's otherwise
and you just
a-
you just play a very control deck, and then you switch
Yeah.
gears.
Okay.
This is
I
like
don't
your
think it can
switch
work
gear
like
kind
that.
of thing.
Yeah,
Alright.
but it's also a way just to confuse the board and win advantage.
Yeah,
in
it could also
certain
come in handy in
scenarios,
certain
but
situations, like,
It's like a potential win condition.
yeah, it could be
for
like a
priest, which is cool.
toolkit kind of thing.
All right,
So I like it.
disagreement banner again.
Okay.
Well, we're
Oh, actually,
really split
I-
between these cards.
I
I,
wouldn't
like
even-
it though. Means we think very differently about the
maybe
game.
not even a disagreement banner. I think the card can work, just not in the same way.
What do you think it would work?
I'm
with, then?
surprised you don't like this card since you're like
we
the
could
combo
talk about
master.
that forever because like the deck that you guys are whatever. It's a lot of detail that goes into explaining why I don't think it works like that.
I mean, that's why we're
it'll
discussing
take us
them,
a
right?
while. Yeah, I know, but it will take us a long time, and we still have a bunch of cards to go through.
Alrighty.
All right, let's move on then.
Alright. Next up, we have a Shaman card. It's a common card. It's a spell. Ancestral Knowledge. Costs 2 mana.
Oh,
And draws 2 cards.
Oh my
and
gosh.
it overloads you for 2.
okay, this is a terrible card.
I think this card's pretty cool. Shaman needs
Okay.
draw card.
Overload 2 is crippling.
I'm gonna be the Grinch.
Okay, so-
I'm gonna be the
so-
Grinch with this
okay.
one.
Let me explain the scenario this works.
I-
So,
Hmm.
in a slow shaman deck, not the shaman deck that we're all imagining with the totems and the summoning and all the nonsense.
okay.
This card, in a slow shaman deck, the goal is to be running as little as minions as possible. Because you're running Ancestor's Call, I think it is. The 4-cost epic card that plays a card from both players' hands, right? So you can't be running too many minions, or else it won't get a consistent minion for you.
You already ruined your argument by saying
No.
you're running that that card.
No. You can quite easily play that deck right now. It doesn't work
It
consistently
doesn't do well
enough.
at all, though.
No. It totally does. It totally
And none
does.
of the new cards are synergizing for that strategy.
You don't need
at
new
all.
cards. The card, it doesn't need any more synergy. It's good on it's got everything it needs but card draw because all the card draw it needs are minions. All the card draw it could have are minions, which has negative synergy with the deck. Now we have the first draw 2 cards thing. That's like the first draw card that is a spell, which is really actually quite huge for that deck. I think it could work very well.
I think it could work in that deck, but I think that deck will completely die to the new type of shaman that's going to be coming
The
out. of it.
Totem
Like,
Shaman,
it's gonna
yeah.
be, no one's going to play. And Totem Shaman can run a Mana Tide Totem. which-
Yeah.
is an
Right,
awesome card.
but like you could do somewhere in between of these two things, right? I know I just said you're not allowed to run minions, but you can do somewhere in between these things.
Yeah.
And it could work out fairly well for you.
I would be excited to see it. I don't think this card.
Here's why why I'm not super excited about this card. 4 mana for 2 cards is quite steep, especially because we're used to 3 mana.
I don't think
or less.
Overload can be counted as a full mana crystal, though. Like I know it is, but because of the way Overload works, I think you kind of have to like half Overload. In my opinion, like when you're counting,
I don't think you have Overload.
Cost.
You're still paying 2 mana. I mean, it's not like you're splitting into turns, but that's still 4 mana total. It's not like because you split into turns, it has less of an impact. It just means that you're gonna have 2 mana less next turn.
Yeah, well, it does actually have less of an impact because that's how it works. That's why it's split up into 2 turns rather than actually being 4 mana.
It's
I
still
think you have to
resources that
value
you have to
this
spend.
card at roughly. Yeah, you're right. I think you value this card roughly at 3 mana though, rather than 4 mana, which is what you're currently judging it as.
I think it
I don't know if
depends
I
on
would
how you
judge it at
view
3
it.
mana.
I don't know if exact half works for Overload. I think it's like it's very conditional when Overload is good or not. Something like one thing that Overload typically lets you do is get something out early. You never want to draw 2 cards early, so that's kind of unfortunate for this card. Like you're never going to want to play this on turn 2.
Yeah.
As opposed to, like Totem Golem is awesome to play on turn 2, and the Overload one you can deal with.
Here's the
I think
problem
you
with
do
it
this on
too.
turn
Like
3.
a lot of cards like Arcane Intellect or any of the other draw mechanics that you use, like Battle Rage and stuff like that. Usually you sneak him in on a turn where you have tempo, right? Where your opponent doesn't have the tempo. The problem with this card is that even if you can do that, if you can sneak it in on a turn where you can clear your opponent's board and you're not going to be worried about him having the tempo next turn. The problem with it is that as soon as you get the turn back, you're going to be 2 mana short, which means that you're dealing with this card in 2 turns rather than most of the other draw cards. You just have to spend 1 turn doing them, and then the next turn you're free to go with your cards. With this card, you're still paying for it the next turn, which means a tempo loss, which means this card is going to slow you down more than the other card draws in the game. And it's only 2, you think the only 2 mana cost is not as much, but 2 mana is a lot, especially when your opponent is going to be able to use all his mana crystals in the next turn.
Yeah. I think we'll be disagreeing on this one, but
Yeah, disagree. I think cards that currently exist in the game can help this card quite a lot. Also, like playing this on 3 and then hero powering on 4 isn't that bad, or playing an actual 2-cost card on 4 is not that bad.
I don't like playing it on 3 because then unless you're lightning bolting, you're effectively wasting 3 mana.
Like it almost makes me think of
No, you're wasting 0. You're wasting 2.
No. You're wasting, you're losing 2 from the next turn, you're paying 2 for it, and then you're misusing or not using 1 mana on turn 3.
Right, but I'm assuming you have
that's
something
like paying
else.
5
what
mana
is the name
for
of the paladin card that draws you 2 cards for 5? Or 3 cards?
Solemn Vigil.
Solemn Vigil.
Solemn Vigil.
Like that's a good example. Like that card you can
No,
make.
this is way better than Solemn Vigil. Like that is not an argument. Like
it's around the same
Is it not
cost.
as
Like
good as
on
Solemn Vigil,
average,
did
you
you
can
say?
get that card for 3 mana, and it's not played a lot. And this card, you're gonna get it for 4 mana every time.
True.
like I said, I don't think you can value this at 4 mana. I think it's a 3 mana card.
I think
Even
you should
Arcane
value it at
Intellect
4
isn't
mana.
enough.
I don't think you should value it at less than that because you're just fooling yourself.
Okay, we're not going to agree on this card.
Alright,
So
yeah,
let's move
move
on to Bash. I think that's the next one, right?
Bash, yes.
Bash. Let's have a bash with Bash.
The Bash card is a warrior card to spell, to common, to 3 cost, deal 3 damage, and gain 3 armor.
I think that maybe you could replace like 1 shield block or 1 cruel taskmaster with this, but I'm not necessarily sold on it.
Yeah, I think you toss Cruel Taskmaster for this. Maybe.
I really like having both cruel taskmasters for like the Grom combo later on. It's really nice to have those around.
Bash.
But
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so like Bash, I don't think will be good, but if it is, I think you cut Cruel Taskmasters for it, or maybe like 1 Cruel Taskmaster. I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know.
I don't think you would ever cut both.
Again, just like
taskmasters.
armor control warrior, undefeatable warrior.
Yeah, I like the idea.
You
not happening.
you remove and then you add to your armor pool, so you have like 40
It's also
armor
worth
by
noting
the
that
end of
that
the
type
game.
of warrior probably wouldn't run Gromash, so that's a non-issue there.
Yeah,
Fair
you're
point,
you're
actually,
cutting
you're
a lot
right.
of the aggressive cards. You're not trying to kill your opponent. You're just trying to
Then
live.
in that case, the taskmasters could totally go for this. You were correct. I like it. I want to see it in action.
More defensive
addition to
cards,
the
more
game.
defensive control cards. So there you go.
Yes, we that is like the first card we've agreed on in like 4 cards.
Next up, we have Brave Hunter, which has magnificent artwork, obviously inspired from the Disney movie.
Yeah, this is obviously
I'm
a little
assuming it's obvious. Yeah.
Yeah, it's obvious.
Easter egg.
No, we're going to disagree on that.
Okay, yeah, let's have an
That's
argument.
totally blue hair she has there. It's obvious.
Right. It's a common card. It's a 1-cost 2/1 with Inspire. If your hand is empty, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero.
Solid aggro card.
People are claiming that this card is worse than Lepernome.
I was about to say.
I would
And,
agree with that. But it's
I-
better in
I-
the late
I-
game.
I do agree with them in that sense. However, still a pretty good card.
Yes, it's okay.
I think you
I
can
think
run
that
Leper
worse
Gnomes
than-
and this.
Yeah, that's where the argument I think works.
have to
But it is
choose.
worse because it's not going to survive more than 1 turn.
I think you maybe run 1 of, not 2 of.
Yeah.
I would say
I guess
too,
it's okay.
Because I mean, in that deck, you just need to the 2/1 on turn 1 is so important, right? Like you see that deck play Abusive Sergeants on turn 1 all the time if it's the only 1-drop in their hand. So I think this is a solid 1-drop, and then that deck tends to unload his hand by turn 5 or 6 is running lower, maybe just has damage in its hand. And this guy is actually not bad in the late game because you can play this guy and hero power, and that's 4 damage to the face for 3
At
mana.
least Hunter doesn't have Koldara Drake.
Yeah, that's true.
That would be. So that's the
I think
one
it's a
that
solid
makes
aggro
the
card,
easy
and
hero power
I
as much
think
as you
you're
want.
gonna see it in Face Hunter.
Yeah, you're right. It's kind of nice to see it. We've been seeing so many control cards. It's nice to see when they give Face Hunter a new
No.
little tool. No?
Nope.
I think Face Hunter is struggling right now, so I don't know.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not bad to throw him a
Absolutely.
bone.
I don't want to throw them a bone, though. I'm okay with that.
So we disagreed on this card, even though we agreed on this
Wait,
card.
we disagreed?
Yeah, I think
thought we
we
agreed.
can throw the agree banner
No, we're
on
just
it, though.
agreeing. We're disagreeing that it's a good thing. We're agreeing
It's
that
a good aggro card.
yeah, but we're disagreeing that it's a good thing that there are good aggro cards.
Okay, yeah,
Right.
I agree with that.
All right, so
Our
I'm
next
excited about this next
card
one.
Is it contends with the injured card to be one of my favorite cards from the set. It is a rogue card. It's a rare. It's a 3-cost spell.
Yeah.
And it reads: add 2 random class cards to your hand from your opponent's class.
Burgle.
I
It
love
has the
the
best
artwork.
artwork.
The artwork is incredible.
He seems so.
Also,
he seems so jolly. He's
I'm
like,
gonna do
"Woo."
this 100% of the time, and if anyone has anything to say about this, you can chime in here at the end. What's gonna happen 100% of games? I'm gonna go on turn 7. Yeah, turn
Judge's
7.
hand?
I'm gonna prep, play this, get Archmage Antonitis, play it, prep again, play my Fireball, keep going. One time that will happen, and I'll be super happy.
So there's like thought steal for rogues.
It's
Right?
it's worse though.
No, it's not. Okay, so it's worse, but prep exists in Rogue, right?
It's
so they have access
relatively
to...
worse because you can't say for sure. It's
I
worse.
honestly, just because prep exists in Rogue, I think it's actually better than Thought Steal. Because the issue with Thought Steal is that you're using the entire turn to do nothing. And if you could prep this out, well, now you're using none of a turn to do something? Maybe?
Yeah, but if you think about it this way, you're replacing 2 cards in your deck for 2 random cards.
Yeah,
Why
that is a very
ever
fair
good?
point. That is a very fair
That's
point.
never good.
Right? But
Why not just put 2 good cards in your
That
deck?
is a very fair point right there.
I can't put Tyrion in my Rogue
Oh,
deck,
come
and I
on.
can't put,
can't-
all of these
On
other
average,
cards in my...
the cards you get are going to be worse than prep and
I
another
don't know
spell
if
you could
I don't know if
select.
prepping Burgle would be the play, but like Thought
Yeah.
Steal in the control matchup, it could be a good card.
Yeah,
I-
I just yeah.
I don't have the collection in front of me, but I'm sure I could show plenty, probably more than not, good cards in Rogue that aren't in Rogue. You know what I mean? Like cards that would be good in Rogue if they had access to it.
That's true,
And-
but I think what we're having to look at though is go back again to the prep example. You're using 2 cards and replacing them with 2 cards.
Okay,
Why
well,
wouldn't
my-
you just select 2 cards?
Yeah,
that
you're
fit
spending
your deck?
resources to replace cards in your deck.
Prep
which
was
is
a bad
not
prep was a bad example for like prepping this out. But what I'm imagining is you play this, and then if you get something good, prepping that thing out. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, but then you're
if
still
you get a
spending
spell.
3 mana, so it's still trading 2 cards for 2 cards. I still don't see it as good.
So, like with Burgle, it's a bit different than playing Thoughtstill, but you still play Thoughtstill.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
The advantage of, like, obviously there's a downside of playing Burgle over Thoughtstill if you had the choices of 2, right? Because obviously you're getting a random class card rather than an opponent's card from their deck. But the advantage of being able to prep it out, in my opinion, makes it better than Thoughtstill, because assuming that you get a spell.
Yeah.
Because that advantage of being able to think about how many passive turns you have as a rogue, just in general, not even a specific rogue deck. Think about how many turns you just have to like attack face and dagger up.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. And something like Miracle Rogue, just increasing the options you have would be really cool.
Exactly.
And then if you play it with a Gadgets in out, you're also drawing.
I definitely don't see this
Also-
card getting played in like Oil Rogue or stuff like that. It would have to be like a different type of rogue. Just because even like Thoughtsteal is kind of getting phased out. Like people don't use it that much.
Well, that's because it's too slow right now, and
is
also
very
it's getting
slow,
phased out because Priest is getting phased out, right? So like,
No, but I'm saying obviously, but I'm saying
no,
like
I
on
know
priest
what you're
decks,
saying.
like a lot of
Yeah,
people
it goes
are cutting
back
it out.
to... I feel like
But the
almost every
reason they're
rogue...
cutting out is because they have to make room for cards that somehow let them into the meta. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a lot.
So like
yeah.
they need to make room for cards like.
But like think about it, and oh, never mind. I'm thinking about priest. But I don't know. We'll see about Burgle.
I think the consistent thing we say across every rogue card is a rogue other than Oil Rogue needs to exist for this to be good.
I don't think.
Right.
I don't think Oil
doesn't.
Rogue is missing a card like this, right? But maybe
like
another
every
type of
rogue
rogue.
card
Like think
they've
about how
announced
like
doesn't
this
fit
could
into
interact in. Think about how this could interact in, like Bryan was saying, a miracle deck, right? There are so many times where miracle isn't doing anything just because they need.
But you're
their
talking
deck
about
to
like
be
Miracle with
filled
Gadgets and Auctioneer?
Yeah, right.
Because
So
the problem with
the
that is
deck
that
has to be-
Auctioneer is not that good anymore.
Right, but that's because it's not fast enough, right? There's an issue with that with in the meta, not with the deck, right? So
They should just release a card that is Auctioneer but costs 5
Well,
mana.
the other problem with that too is that Miracle Rogue drew so many cards because he was looking for the combo, but that combo doesn't
Right,
exist
but, like,
anymore either.
Okay, so let me make my final point about Miracle and Burgle, because I still haven't gotten to make that point. With Burgle, it gives you stuff to do, because Miracle doesn't have room to put minions and stuff like that in the deck because they need their entire deck to be filled with spells that they can continuously cycle with Gadget Sand. Burgle can still cycle with Gadget Sand and, well, seemingly for 0 mana if you're prepping it or something like that, and it gives you options for future turns without having to actually run minions.
That's a really good point. If Miracle becomes a thing again, I think Burgle can work. We'll see if Miracle becomes a thing again. I really hope it does.
I wouldn't say this card in Miracle either, but
Okay,
maybe,
we disagree.
Maybe a different type of rogue.
All right, now these are the big ones. These are the the class legendaries that have been announced so far.
Right? Super excited about these.
Yeah.
So let's get into the Druid one first. Aviana is a 9-cost 5/5, and her effect reads, your minions cost 1.
I don't think this card is very good.
What? What are you
I
talking
think
about?
in a very specific case it could be, but by the time you're getting to 9 drops...
What happens when on turn 10, I play this and my
Innervate.
Ancient of War, the next turn, I'm not even doing the dream scenario where I get to innovate. I'm doing next turn, I play Kel'Thuzad.
Yeah.
And then I play like 9 other minions with like great value. This card has
the big
such
difference
huge
is you're
potential.
not going to have cards in your hand by turn 9. Not
Maybe
that
I
many.
will if I'm playing a super slow, taunt-heavy
Yeah.
druid deck.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. A control druid that maybe aims to combo off of this card can be good. That is running Thaurissan as well in it, because it was confirmed that if you get a discount on Thaurissan, the cards cost 0 when you play Aviana.
Right, but I think you don't want it that way around. I think you want to discount Aviana and then play Aviana later with the 1-cost things. Because if you discount and then... If you play Aviana and then discount, that's like too slow. Right?
No, I'm saying you play Thaurissan and discount a bunch of creatures in your card, in your hand, I mean, even if you don't have Aviana in it. But then when you play Aviana, all those cost 0.
I don't think that's how it works.
Yeah.
No, that shouldn't work like that.
Yeah.
That, like... history suggests effects like that shouldn't work.
The
Like, for
discount,
instance, if
the
you-
discount persists, and because Aviana makes everything cost 1, that 1 becomes 0. It was confirmed on Twitter by Worthen, I think.
Are you sure they
Oh.
weren't? Are you sure they weren't saying after you play Thaurissan with Aviana already on the board, those 1-cost things become 0?
I believe if you just play Thaurissan, I will
That
double
makes
check.
it way
I will
better.
double check
if
that,
is
but
the
I'm pretty
case.
sure that's.
Yeah,
I
I
got
highly doubt it works the way.
that's what I
you're
thought too.
explaining.
But then they say that, and I was like, "What?"
I might change my opinion on this card if that is the case, because that's insane.
I highly doubt that's the case.
That's hand dump. Wow.
Yeah, no,
wow.
that can't be. Like, even if that was the case, like, the same thing kind of applies, right? Like, I don't know, I think I would love to see that quote. Is there any way you can look for that quote while we talk about the rest of the cards?
Yeah, we can keep bringing it up. I'll just look it up real quick.
All right.
Okay,
But
cool.
yeah, Billy, I kind of see your point. I think this card conditionally could be good. It's just ridiculously slow. And even then, like, I think a big problem with control decks or decks like this is by that point in the game, you might have 1 or 2 big drops, but you'd have to have them all in your hand, and likely you probably don't have a very big hand at that point. So
I'm
I think at this
Picturing,
point
like,
it's
my-
not hard getting by to turn 9 with Druid though, if you really
Right?
want to.
Especially if you're playing, like, a ramp druid with, like, a bajillion taunt cards.
Yeah. And then, let's say
But I
against
mean,
like
so many
Warrior,
of your cards are
going to
be
so
spent
good.
towards, wild growthing and innervating, and you're not going to have like a hand of more than 2 or 3 creatures. Aviana will
Ancient
be one
of
those.
Lore exists. Maybe they run Nourish.
Yeah, I guess maybe it could work. Maybe. I imagine it would have a place
so
in
I
Ramp.
do think this is not the easiest card to pull off, but in comparison to other legendaries of this cost, I think this one actually can make the cut.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fair. I don't play much Druid, so I can see it. I'm just not sold on it yet.
I think that this card's really good.
Okay.
Next up, we have the Rogue Legendary, which I'm slightly disappointed about. Although I'm happy that a new Barak is in the game. I'm totally not happy with what it turned out to be. This is a 9-cost, 8/4 minion with Death Rattle. Return this minion to your hand and summon a 4/4 Nerubian.
I kind of like this card. This card seems kind of neat.
Right. But, I mean, I'm happy that it's not a Joust, first of all, because that would make this card infinitely worse. But Death Rattle, return this minion to your hand. You're still committing another 9 mana next turn to play the card. And assuming that you're not playing the card, then what are you really doing anyway? You know what I mean?
Oh, no. It would have to be you're continually playing the card. Yeah.
I
Right.
agree with that,
Sorry.
but Rogue, one of the matchups that struggle with the most is Control Warrior. And this card wrecks Control Warrior as a rogue.
Yeah, because Control Warrior
you
typically
never
doesn't
run out of
unsilence.
damage, basically, with this card. Which is what happens.
And the other thing about it is it's basically 9 mana for 12 8 of stats, which is great. Like, 9 mana for that many stats is really good. So it's not like you wouldn't want to be playing that continually.
Sure. But I mean, most likely... Okay. Yeah, alright. I see that.
So I kind of like it. I don't think it's amazing. I think it's one of those cards that has potential, but I could see so easily, like Trogzor or something, just not actually working in practice.
Yeah,
But
you're right about
I like
that.
it. I think it does address a weakness Rogue has.
I wish it was
love it in
8 mana.
concept.
The 9 mana makes it a little steep.
Yeah.
Definitely is gonna be for like very long matches where you
And you
just
It's
can't
very
have to finish it off.
purposely... Oh, I think speaking of which, Mill Rogue, anyone?
Yeah.
Maybe? One time?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's pretty darn good in Mill.
Wow, I might make a Mill deck.
Okay,
That
I
looks
found
like a
it.
lot of fun.
Actually, I
Okay.
was wrong. If Aviana comes into play after Emperor, she makes minions cost 1. If Emperor procs again, they cost 0.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what I
so
thought.
what I assumed was correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more
Just
sense.
a clarification, just in case that was too confusing for some people. If Emperor Thaurissan comes out before Aviana, they do not cost 0. However, if Aviana is played first, and then you play Emperor Thaurissan, and Emperor Thaurissan discounts, everything in your hand will go to 0.
Okay.
Yep.
So we have our last card.
A final card of the day. Eodric the Pure.
Paladin
Alright.
Legendary.
Alright, yeah. Paladin Legendary, 7 cost, 3/7, with the battle cry, change all enemy minions attack to 1.
So I looked at this guy for a long time and had an inner battle of whether this is a good card or not. I think I came out on the side of this is a good card.
This is an incredible card, in my opinion.
Okay.
I think that this card could easily spawn a control paladin, the similar to the original control paladin, which is like heavy late game, like incredible heavy late game, because you like if you're losing the game, or not really losing the game, but like if you're slightly behind, you're kind of just holding on there with your tiny little control cards. Then you slam this down on 7.
Good. I'm just thinking about.
And then you start playing your big guys. So good.
That is true.
I actually
like
hadn't seen
lock.
this card until right now, and my mind is kind of blown a little bit. This guy is so
incredible.
good against decks like Handlock. If your opponent plays like a double giant or a turn like that, you just play this guy and you're good.
That's true. I mean, it is incredibly slow though. You're not getting that much out of it. 3/7 for 7.
Yeah, I don't think this is an anti-aggro card. Granted, I think this is a like heavy card control kind of like.
Yeah, this counters a control meta for sure.
Yeah, for sure. This is for the late game. This guy is meant to answer threats right here. Big guys, big
Absolutely.
threats, or also.
So like
I can also picture
picturing...
like a druid board, like a very mid-rangey, like hefty minions like that come out in like
Dude,
5 to
when
6.
Shade's getting big, when they've got like a big Shade up, just play this.
Yeah, this is
because previously you couldn't hit Aldor with Shade, but you
takes
can
out
hit
all the
this
power.
with Shade.
Yeah, sucks all the power from the minions.
I don't know. I feel like Equality Consecrate dealt with a lot of the types of boards we're talking about, though. But I mean, you could always use another answer.
We've been cutting one equality.
That's true. So you could use a second
And the
answer.
problem with Equality Consecrate is that it's 6 mana and you don't play any minions. This is
and it hurts your own
This is
board.
7 mana and you have a 3/7.
Yeah,
I love
think
this
it's
card.
good.
This card is incredible.
This
came
guy's
on that
solid
end.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that he is in like my first few packs, like in my first 50.
Oh, me too.
I
really
want
to make a control, like mid-range to control paladin with this guy in it.
One of the listeners of this show, Aiden, who is a incredible paladin player, is super excited about this card because he's been working on a control paladin for a very long time, and I think the deck that he will make from this card is gonna be like very, very, very viable.
Yeah.
Like maybe even top 5.
I don't know. I'm thinking about like the Dragon Paladin because I always wanted to make that Dragon Paladin work, but you just didn't have enough tools to allow you to get to that absurd late game that you wanted to get.
I like the approach that the same person, Aiden, took with a Dragon Paladin, which was not actually be Dragon Paladin, be Control Paladin, but run Ysera and 1 Dragon Consort.
Yeah, I think that works. Because the Dragon Consort will always trigger on Ysera if you draw her.
Right?
Yeah. I can see that. Maybe like one other dragon if it's really good, but I can't think of what that other dragon would be yet.
Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward
to Paladin. I'm looking forward to Shaman and Priest.
We agreed. All right. Whoa. So that takes us to the end of our cards. We agreed on 14 cards. So Andres has won.
Wow.
With his,
how did we agree on 14 cards? I don't believe that.
It was almost half. I mean, we were getting to agree on half of them, which is insane.
I believed in us.
Yeah, maybe Andres specifically agreed to a few of those just to, bump the numbers. But I got second place with 97, and Billy thought we'd agree on 3, which he is quite a cynic.
Billy had no faith.
Hey, I had really no faith for good reason. I thought...
I am really looking forward to all of these cards.
I'm looking forward to listening back to this episodes when the cards come out and see how things actually panned out.
I'm just gonna download all these episodes. Normally, I don't like listening to I've never listened to a show that I've been on, but for this particular scenario where we're giving our opinions on things that don't exist yet,
how wrong are we all?
Yeah, I can't wait to go. I'm gonna wait a month and then go back and watch.
I'm just gonna listen back and be like, what was I thinking?
Yeah, do that as well, listeners. Definitely go back and email us with all the things we got horribly wrong.
Right.
Speaking of listeners, because we had so many cards to go over, we will not have a listener topic this week, but we do have an iTunes review. We got a 5-star iTunes review from Watchman HS, which reads, great show for new and experienced Hearthstone players. And he says, I've been listening to the show for over a month now, and I'm happy to say that I am a fan. The topics are interesting, the content is useful, and the synergy between Bryan, Andres, and Billy is fun and entertaining. Keep up the good work, guys. The only critique of your review that I have, Watchman, is actually my name is spelled with a Y, not an I, which I would expect you to know from audio format. You know, obviously, we're pronouncing it with a Y every time we say it.
Pronounced Bryan.
It's Bryan.
Bryan.
So we've just been mispronouncing it the whole time. But yeah, seriously, thanks for the review. I really, I do appreciate
thanks
that.
a lot,
and
man.
happy
I like
to have
that he
you.
said that we have good synergy.
Yeah, that's good to hear. It's unfortunately our last episode had terrible synergy because Billy wasn't here, but we're back.
Belly messing up the synergy.
I'm like the hobgoblin to your wisp.
That is the best pickup line
And we
I think we've ever heard.
we didn't drew Hobgoblin last episode.
He was at the bottom of the deck as always.
Like always.
But I believe the only way you can improve that, Billy, is I am like the hobgoblin to your lovely squire.
Right, I was gonna go with that, but I thought like calling you guys lowly would have been like kind of a jab, so I
Calling
went
us
with
wisps isn't.
No. Wisps are respected.
If I ever use a pickup line like that and it works, I'm marrying that girl.
All right. You all can email us at hearthaholics@gmail.com if you want to send in your own Hearthstone pickup lines or just want to have a listener topic. Definitely email us. We could use more of those. We are on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Just search Hearthaholics and we are there. We are a production of the Whales Are Whales Network, so head over to whalesorwhales.com for other awesome shows like this with awesome people like us. And you can also meet us personally, and by personally I mean over the internet, at the Angry Chicken Game Night. The Angry Chicken is a fellow Hearthstone podcast that we owe this all to because we met from their community. And if you check out their subreddit, TAC Podcast, you can see me posting there every week about a game night we do on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Central Daily Time. So check that out. We recently had a listener show up and it was great. Thanks for coming, Matthew, if you're listening to this now. And I hope to see you all there in the coming weeks. Finally, where can you find us personally? Andres.
People can find me personally on Twitter at iPlayGames. You spell that IPLAI Games. You can also find some of my musical work, including the intro thing to this podcast, at my website, massevemusic.com. And you spell that MASSEVE music.com. Check it out.
And Billy?
I won't bother telling you about YouTube and Twitch stuff because that's going to be all changed very soon, but you can find me on Twitter at MeBroly. There you go.
There you go. And for me, you can find me on Twitter at Lord Meldor, and all of my other stuff, and that's MELDORR. And all of my other stuff, that's going to be on the Whales Are Whales there. Though not recently. I haven't been making it to the Whales Are Whales podcast, and that's been bumming me out, which is like our all-star podcast of all our producers.
I have been making it, and
I still have yet to make it to the Willis and Willis podcast.
Yeah,
you gotta show up, man.
Sundays.
It's a lot of fun.
I'd love to.
we need to
Yeah,
have one.
Sundays is just such a hard day for me.
Yeah, I think we're going to have one on Monday sometime so you can
If it's
join
on Monday,
the
I'll
festivities.
definitely be there.
Awesome. I think we're going to try that because I really want to do that. And yeah, Billy, you seem to be having a really good time on there recently. I'm looking forward to rejoining you guys. So everyone check that out if you just want to hear us. Like, if you don't think we're
We got
unprofessional enough
super
on this
deep
podcast.
on like one of the episodes.
Yeah, I was listening to that. As I was editing that one, and it's like you're talking about death and
Yeah, if you want to hear like a really deep, in-depth discussion about things, you
Things
should
are
go
getting
listen
real.
to that episode.
Greatest
it was a
fears.
super real episode.
And you might have had like my favorite sponsor of all time. That was really good.
What was our sponsor that week?
It was rainbow colored knee pads.
Yes,
Our sponsor of the episode that
it was a
week.
great
So-
sponsor.
All right. Well, we need to close out the show here now. So I am rapidly finding our flavor text of the week. This is going out to, what is it? Burgle? Is that what it was? This is one for Burgle. And here we go. If you haven't heard the Tyrion Fordring theme song, it's because it doesn't exist.
Let the hunt begin.